following program will also be heard in Canada by shortwave in Mexico, Central America, and South America, and from coast to coast in the USA, it's Mirth and Madness.
Hey, you!
Are you listening?
Hi, neighbor, what do you know? What do you say? Hi, neighbor, she's away. Come on and shake my hand and let her into the rest. It makes you feel so grand to get the chill on your chest.
With Jack Kirkwood, your moody, meandering master of ceremony, inviting you to wander into another of our woefully weary walkathons, a wobbly wiki-up of well-worn witticism and weather-beaten waggery, with his wistful wool-gatherer waddling through a wispy web of wonderful wackiness and wizened witchery, and accompanied on his weaving way by the wall-eyed wand-waver and his wagon-load of witless wonders. So wait on in, won't you, while we whisk over and whisper to the wizards to warm up an overture. Whack it, man, whack it! Is overturned by Scorch Miller and his 9-hole men, and good it was, too. With a band like that, Irving could get in anywhere, like Leavenworth, Atlanta, any place like that there. Now, I'd like to have the audience in the aisles today, not going out, though.
I'd like to have an audience with the boss.
I'd like to have an audience, but I'm sorry you can't see the boss today. He just jumped out the window. The elevator wasn't working.
Well, why didn't he walk down?
28 flights of stairs. He might slip and hurt himself.
I never thought of that. I'm satisfied.
I'm Kirkwood.
I'm Gray.
Well,
how do you do?
Do you mind if I take a slap at that hula skirt? My wife told me to be sure and hit the hay.
No, not at all, but I'd sooner hit the road.
It's a treat to beat your feet on the Mississippi mud. Ah, dear old Mississippi.
Oh, yes.
That's where I met my first sweetheart. I remember I took her out to Lover's Leap and kissed her.
What did she do?
She leaped.
I'll bet you were a romantic pair.
Ah, yes, indeed. When we went to the theater, we were a regular Romeo and Juliet. I'd sit in the orchestra seats and she'd sit in the balcony.
Ah, romance.
Ah, love.
Ah,
sweet mystery of life, at last I found you. Where you been hiding, you little rascal, you?
Well, I must be off.
You ain't kidding.
Oh, now, I beg to take issue with you.
Well, all right, but you'll have to take it out of the studio. You take that end, I'll take that. There we are. Place looks much better, too.
Well, I'll be running along now. I have to do my part toward the scrap metal drive.
What are you going to do?
Try to pick up a platinum blonde.
What about your wife? Oh, that old thing. Yes. You shouldn't speak of your wife like that. It's kind of a low trick.
Hello, Kirkwood.
Hello, Trick. How's Mrs. Trick?
She gave me a grand slam this morning.
I thought you were wearing a new bridge. Nice woman, though. English, isn't she?
No, I think she's a marmoset.
That's a monkey.
I think she's a marmoset.
Marmoset?
A marmoset. Marmoset from Armatil, Barley-boo. A marmoset from Armatil, Barley-boo. A marmoset from Armatil, she hasn't been kissed to 40 yet. A hinky-dinky Barley-boo.
And so we wave a fond farewell to the dusty little village of Washout on the Line, with its good-natured natives and its denatured medicine men. We climb aboard our old fishing barge and go barging downstream while the natives throw garlands from the shore. We pull Mr. and Mrs. Garland into our boat and speedily head for the open sea, and even as we reach the deep water, over the sound of the breakers can be heard the native song of farewell, Ni bin shia, no malo, bingo ya boy bejo, bingo ya boy bejo, which when freely translated means come back, and we'll see that you are placed in the middle of the griddle. And as we steer past the floating driftwood and debris, you remember driftwood and debris did a high diving act on the pole eye circuit. Imagine them drifting this far. We are suddenly startled by the horrible scream of the weird Kanaka foozle gruff, which we catch in our nets and discover to our dismay is Don Reed singing Long Ago and Far Away. Well, you can't get too far away to suit me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Long ago and far away, I dreamed a dream one day, and now that dream is here beside me. Long the sky was overcast, but now the clouds have passed. You're here at last. Chills run up and down my spine. Aladdin's lamp is mine. The dream I dreamed was not denied me. Just one look and then I knew that all I longed for long ago was just one look and then I knew that all I longed for long ago was you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. That took me right back to my home on the prairie. I've never seen a prairie as flat as that song. Of course, I'm kidding. Says here. And that bit of bicarbonated baritone brings us to the Madhouse Tabloid.
The Madhouse Tabloid is on the air with a big story on the political scene. And here's your tabloid commentator, Phineas Rubber Stamp Deadline. Shoot the vote to me, goat.
Howdy, Miss Daly City. I'll be back in a rolls with the polls.
Pinball on the tilt, California. Honest Jack Kirkwood campaigns for re-election.
Hi, diddly folks. With the election only a few days off, Jack Kirkwood has been campaigning night and day for his favorite candidate, Jack Kirkwood. As mayor of the Gas House District for the past 4 years, Kirkwood has succeeded in cleaning out the city hall so that now there's practically nothing left down there but a couple of old benches. He's now running for re-election, and today our star reporter will give you a bird's-eye view of the entire campaign. He's a crook. He pays, buys every vote. He's 4 or 5. Take it away, Adelbert.
The whole town is buzzing with politics.
Politics.
Listen to what some of our citizens are saying about Kirkwood, the people's pal. First, a word from a prominent merchant.
I want Jack Kirkwood for mayor of Pinball because I've decided to move to New York.
Well, here's an old maid of 75. Listen to what she has to say.
I want Jack Kirkwood because at my age I'll settle for anybody. Whee!
Well, now we bring you the voice of the man in the street.
I ain't getting up out of this gutter to vote for nobody.
And here is what the president of the local chamber of commerce has to say.
We want Jack Kirkwood.
And here's what the boys down at the city hall are saying.
Say, did you ever hear the one about the fellow who went to the doctor? He thought he was...
All over the city, enthusiasm for Kirkwood is at a feverish pitch. The people are having a terrific celebration. You can hear them now. Listen! And they've been carrying on like that for hours. Now, we take you to the big Kirkwood rally in Union Square. First, a few words from Mr. Luscious Drooper, president of the Civic Betterment League. Mr. Drooper.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I thank you.
And now, I want to introduce the chief speaker of the evening, Mr. Ward Heeler, chief heel of the KA, or Kirkwood Association. Mr. Heeler.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put my cards right under the table. I I'm speaking for a man who has a heart of gold, nerves of steel, and an iron constitution. So if he isn't elected, we can turn him over to the scrap metal drive. Just look at the candidate, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever seen such character in a face? Have you ever seen such a face on a character? Just let me ask you, who paved our streets?
Jack Kirkwood.
Who gave us our parks?
Jack Kirkwood.
Who took the pinball machines out of the drugstore?
Jack Kirkwood.
He did, the dirty crook. Who gave you the library?
Jack Kirkwood.
Who gave you the museum?
Jack Kirkwood.
Who gave you Jack Kirkwood?
The museum.
Who will really benefit most if Kirkwood is elected?
Jack Kirkwood!
Right. Kirkwood is a family man. He loves to hear the patter of childish feet. In fact, he's held so many babies in the last 2 weeks, he's learned how to juggle them. He's never had his hand in anybody's pocket. All he wants is a chance. Why, when Kirkwood was elected 4 years ago, there were more rackets in this town than you could shake a stick at. And what did Kirkwood do about it? Do you know what he did?
No, what did he do?
Went out and got more sticks. But why should I stand here telling you why you should vote for the people's pal? Let the record speak. Well, let it speak. Put on the record. And now, before we close the rally with our campaign song, would any young lady in the audience like to kiss me? Any old lady in the audience like to kiss me? Would any man in the audience like to kiss me? Would any old cocker spaniel in the audience like to kiss me?
You'd kiss a cocker spaniel to get votes?
Why not? They go to the polls, too.
Who wouldn't vote for Kirkwood for mayor? You'll be the goat for he'll get in your hair. He's the candidate the city's mad about. So go to the polls, but hide your oaths, for he's the lout who'll clean you out. He's got a platform that looks pretty strong, but it's full of termites, won't last very long. So cast your ballot one or maybe more, baby. Kirkwood's the jerk that we're voting for.
Very good. A goodie, fellas. That will spearmint lose its flavor on the bedpost overnight. That's played by Irving Miller and his salon group. Just returned from a successful engagement in the gold room of Feinschreiber's Flop House. Feeding the flop for 4 bits. And that brings us to our most distinguished guest.
Ah, yes, here he is. A romantic old quince with his extra set of double chints. And his ever welcome advice to the lovelorn, Dr. Hartburn. Lovely day, Doctor.
Beautiful indeed, William. On days like this, I always think of an old girl of mine, Les Norsemorsville.
Oh.
Les Norsemorsville's Mahoogelstrugel. What a gorgeous babe she was. What a head. Of course, it was horrible to look at it, but it was a head. She was the only girl I ever saw with 4 arms. 2 faced one way and 2 faced the other. Very handy. She could scratch herself anywhere. She had a figure like a 14-year-old girl, but by the time she gave it back, it was all bumpy. She finally decided to give me the brush off, and with her mustache, she could do it, too, believe me. She didn't like the climate. She wanted to go to a warmer climate, so I told her where to go. I haven't seen her since. I bet she likes it in Southern California, too. I remember it well. How wonderful it was to pick oranges right off the trees. They told me as they picked out the buckshot at the hospital. But I'll keep on searching till I find the right girl. Oh, there must be some girl in this world for me. Oh, that's awful, isn't it? Don't expect me to stay here and listen to that. That's awful.
Where are you going?
That's worse than one of your souls, Gray. I'm getting out of here. Where's my motorcycle? Oh, all right, here we go, baby. Turpentine, Willie. There goes the traffic bell. I knew you'd like that one. Thanks, lads. That was Hot Time in the Old Town, as arranged by Maestro Miller, whose latest book, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Lady Harpists, has become a bestseller in all the bestsellers in town. And...
All the captain cried, all hands below. Belay there, lads, here comes a blow. The radio brought the warning through that the Madhouse Show presents part 2. A tickle, 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 tickle. It's the Madhouse Show, and here's part 2.
Now, lovers of lilting lunacy, will you join us at the Poet's Nook?
Greetings, friends. Won't you come in for a kindly thought?
Ah, yes. Here he is, our poet so balmy, shaped like a boiled salami. Ah, but listen, music, how enduring. And during this part of the program, I always go out and have a smoke. I just can't take it.
There's the wonderful scent of the lilacs, the essence of sweet perfume, the mystic spell of the incense in the garden where roses bloom, the aroma of cooking cabbage, and the odor of burning tar. But I'm here to tell that there ain't no smell like that of a cheap cigar.
Today.
And now for another little homespun episode in our heartwarming story of Just Plain Folks, the story of Sadie Blackgirl, Riveter. Today we find our heroine and her boyfriend Roger in a drugstore. They have had 2 strawberry sundaes apiece. Sadie has bought a new lipstick, and Roger has tried to buy a bottle of bourbon. And as they are about to leave the store, Roger remembers that he needs some paste. So he steps up to the nearest counter and says...
Hey, mister, I want a tube of paper glue.
Paper glue?
Yeah, I want to mend a torn page in a book.
You should use Scotch tape for that, sir. I have some right here.
I don't want Scotch tape. I want glue.
Shh, don't be so loud, Roger.
I'm only trying to be helpful, sir. You shouldn't paste the pages. You should use...
Listen, if you don't give me what I want, I'll climb over the counter and get it myself.
Say, nobody can talk to me like that. Now scram before I lose my temper and hang one on your jaw.
If you don't give me that glue in 2 seconds, I'll get it myself, you big bluff.
Brother, you're begging for it, and you're going to get it.
Uh-oh, Roger, I don't think he's bluffing.
Will Roger get the paste he's asking for? Tune in next week, folks. We don't know. Fanfare number 4 is played by Irving Miller and his triple threat termites, sounding just as good as if they tuned up before the broadcast. Well, almost. Anyhow, it brought us over to our servicemen special, and up steps pretty little Julie Conway to delight us with Somebody Loves Me. Well, no doubt, baby, no doubt. They should.
Somebody loves me. I wonder who. I wonder who it can be. Somebody loves me. I wish I knew who it can be. Worries me. With every guy that passes by, I shout, hey, maybe you could learn to be my loving baby. Somebody loves me. I wonder who. Maybe it's you. Somebody loves me, loves me. I wonder who. I wonder who it can be. Somebody loves me. I wish I knew who it can be. Worries me. With every guy that passes by, I shout, hey, maybe you could learn to be my loving baby. Maybe somebody loves me, loves me. I wonder who. Maybe, baby, it's you.
theater?
Today, the Madhouse Comedy, Drama, and There Must Be a Better Way to Make a Living players present their own brilliant version of Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. As the curtain rises, we find the Sultan speaking with his daughter. Curtain.
Say, Papa, when are you going to break down and get me a husband?
I'm have to break down any minute, but I don't know about the husband. What happened to the last man I found for you anyway? I left you alone with him every night for a week.
I know, Papa, but you told me to watch the furnace.
You mean you had trouble with the guy or the furnace?
Both. Every time I watched one of them, the other would go out.
Well, tell me, my little pumpkin, what do you consider the ideal man?
That's easy. Just give me the eyes of Tyrone Power.
Yes, go on.
And give me the lips of Charles Boyer.
Yes, go on.
That's all, Papa. Just give me the lips of Charles Boyer. Whoopee! Whee!
Well, don't worry your pretty little flat head, daughter. I've got a feller all paid out for you. Handsome little schlemiel called Aladdin. With his money, we'll be able to pay off the mortgage on the old throne.
When's he dropping over, Papa?
Oh, he'll be arriving in a few minutes, daughter. How's about dinner? I'm hungry.
I'm cooking up a little borscht, Papa.
Good.
It'll be ready real soon.
Fine. What time do we line up at the trough? Get loose. Here comes Aladdin on his magic carpet. Hey, take a powder, gal. I'll handle him.
Hiya, Pop. What's cooking?
Sounds what impudence. Throw yourself before me, vessel.
What? And slop up my flopsy-mopsy slack suit?
Throw yourself at my feet, knave. Well, goodness, don't bust your bustle, kid.
I have come as you commanded, O Salt.
Oh, so. Oh, yes. Aladdin, how would you like to marry my daughter? How would you like to live in connubial felicity?
Does the bus stop there?
Twice a week. If you marry my daughter, this lamp I shall give you, this magic lamp.
Oh, lamps like that are sure extinct.
I know, but you can always leave the windows open.
Okay, give me the lamp.
And remember, my lad, with this lamp you can have anything you want. Just rub the lamp, make your wish, and your wish is gratified. Go ahead, try it.
Okay, here goes. Well, look who's here.
Is that you, Mr. Benny?
Say, who are you?
Ah, the genie of the lamp, master. I'm your slave. Your wish is my command, sir.
Okay, let me rub that lamp again. Gold. Gold. I want gold.
There you is, boss.
Oh. Gold. Gold. More gold.
Why? What? Oh. How'd that clicker get in there?
Well, I'll rub some more. I want gold. 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 Hey, what's the matter?
The machine is tilted, boss.
There you are, Aladdin, my love, my husband-to-be. Yippee!
Say, didn't I see you wrestle at the garden last week, sister?
Could be. Aladdin, this is my little daughter Jennifer, your future wife. What have you to say to that?
Help! Hey, what makes her face so green?
My face isn't green, you silly boy. It just looks green in certain light.
Yes, daylight and electric light. Well, will you marry her or won't you?
Well, I'll think about it.
If you think about it, you won't marry her. She really has a beautiful soul. Lift up your foot, daughter, and show him.
Yeah, before I give my answer, there's just one thing I'd like to ask you about your daughter.
Yes? What is it?
That's what I was going to ask you. Well, tell me. Tell me, is she smart?
Is she smart? Just look at this report card.
Sultana Reform School.
Oh, no, not that one. Excuse me. This one. She was only in the 3rd grade, too.
Oh, not bad. What's this note written on the margin? Please have your daughter shaved before coming to school.
That's too late, you know. She's a whiz at mathematics. I'll show you. Now, daughter.
Yes, Papa?
If I subtract 50 from 100, what is the difference?
That's what I say. Who cares? Kiss me, Al.
I've been wanting to kiss you, but one thing stops me.
Yes?
Well, I hate to ask you, but...
Well, go ahead. For you, I would do anything.
Well, will you take off that catcher's mask first?
But I'm not wearing a catcher's mask.
That does it. Where's that genie?
Yes, boss. Yeah, you all crave something?
Yeah, I crave to get out of here. You can have the lamp. If I have to marry a puss like that, I'd rather live in the dark.
Oh, but, boss, don't forget your every wish can be gratified.
Say, that's right. Okay, Jeannie, rub that lamp and make this gargoyle beautiful.
I sure will, boss. How beautiful you want her?
Oh, I don't care. Suit yourself.
Suit myself? Okay, here we go.
Well, shut my mouth, cat. Where's that ever-loving genie of mine? Yeah.
Hey, Jeannie, what have you done? You double-crossed me. I told you to make her beautiful.
You told me to suit myself, didn't you?
Yeah, but gee...
Man, this suits me. Sweetheart Me being played by Irv and his relatives, and I'd like to say that was swell. I'd like to say that was great, but I'd like to, but I'd only be lying, so I'll see you.
Mind if I intrude now, Demetrius?
Not at all, Ellery. Glad to have you.
Oh, kind of you as usual.
Well, I mean it. I'm so delighted I can't find words to express myself.
Where do you want to go?
Well, I'm not sure, but I must be going by boat because I'm on my way to the dock.
Oh, I didn't know you were sick.
Oh, I'm not. It's the prisoner's dock. I have a case in court. Someone slapped a plaster on me.
Oh, a court plaster.
Yes. Oh, yes. I must get the court plastered, but I mustn't forget to paper the Spanish walls.
The what?
Spanish walls.
Spanish walls? Oh, I'd love to.
Right. Well, neighbors, looks like we've swept all the corners and dusted the cobwebs off another one, but we'll be back digging stuff out of the storehouse and trying to rearrange it the way you like it about the same time tomorrow.
Whole gang will be helping out. Irving Miller, Gay Seabrook, Don Reed, Julie Conway, Bob Sherry, Sad Sam, the sound man, the lads of the band. So give us a hand, won't you?
Thanks for letting us come in and muss up your house today, folks. Thanks for your nice cards and letters and all that kind of stuff like that there. Take mighty good care of yourselves, neighbors, and say, don't forget to keep on buying those war bonds and stamps. You hear me?
Till tomorrow, then. This is Bill Gray.
And Jack Kirkwood asking you to wait for that call.
Hey!
Are you listening?
Show, write for tickets, address your letters to Mirth and Madness, NBC Radio City, New York. Mirth and Madness, written by Jack Kirkwood and produced by Jack Hill, is presented from New York City. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
The mightiest war machine in history is now storming Hitler's Europe. NBC will interrupt its regular programs for the latest invasion bulletins as they come off the wire. Stay tuned to WEAF, New York.
Adelaide Hawley says,
Household hints, how to sabotage the Nazis.
Good morning, friends, and welcome to another Adelaide Hawley program. On this day, after the day which made so much history, it makes my daily presentation of a historical fact seem superfluous. And yet the one I found for today isn't far out of line. 4 years ago, on the 7th of June, 1940, the Norwegian army capitulated to the invading Germans. Well, today the shoe is on the other foot, not only for Norwegians, but for all invaded peoples. I think Adelaide's going to have something to say about that, particularly about what women of the United Nations are thinking and doing today. Am I right, Adelaide?
Good morning, Clyde. And how do you do, everybody? Yes, I do have news of United Nations women this morning, and I think you'll find it as inspiring and comforting as I did. And certainly it's fresh news because it came direct to me, and it's different from the things the men commentators have been telling us about because, understandably, they've been concerned with the men's side of things.
Well, may I suggest a sponsor message before you begin, Adelaide?
Well, of course, Clyde. Shall we urge everyone listening, everyone with a man in the service, to have his or her picture taken right away to send to the camps, the battle stations, or the fronts. Fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, wives, send your service representative a picture as soon as possible. If you live too far away from the Bachrach studio at 683 Fifth Avenue to make an appointment there, well, then have a picture taken somewhere, but do send a picture. It does a world of good to be able to look at the folks back home.
Or if some of you can't get to the Bachrach studio for a right-away picture, you probably would still like to see the portrait type of picture for which Bachrach is famous. So why not send your name and address to Adelaide Hawley, WEAF, New York, and she'll arrange for you to receive your Bachrach booklet so that you can see for yourself.
Well, the very lovely reproductions of fine Bachrach photographs that you find in this booklet owe part of their perfection to the extreme care that Bachrach photographers take when you sit before their camera. Even before the camera sees you, you know, a professional stylist does. That is, if you're on the feminine side of the picture. And if you want the stylist's advice on lipstick, eyebrows, eye makeup, and hairstyles, well, it's all yours for the asking.
Yes, that's why Bachrach photographs are so natural and beautiful. They sometimes take a bit of living up to. But that's not hard to do inasmuch as the stylist makes a complete chart of beauty hints for you. It's made for you, and it's yours. So why not call Bachrach today at 683 Fifth Avenue and make an appointment? Or, if that's impossible, remember to write for that booklet.
I didn't have the chance to talk to you listeners yesterday as much as I wanted to, but I thought about you, and I wondered how you were feeling now that the time we dreaded and yet wanted has come. You know, I tried to analyze my own feelings, and I found that, well, I simply wanted to move a little faster and dig into a lot of work that I'd been putting off. And maybe it was my imagination, but I thought people on the street were moving a little faster and a little more purposefully. Did you notice that, Clyde?
Yes, I did, Adelaide.
And every time I stopped doing something, I found myself feeling the way you do when you keep your fingers crossed over something. And I kept thinking sort of wordless prayers, and I'm sure all of you did, too. Yesterday I went into a lunch counter just to pick up a bite of lunch, and I'd been going around asking people all day how they felt. And so there was a gray-haired woman sitting beside me, and I asked her how she felt now that the D-Day had come, and she said, well, she had a son who'd been stationed in England, so she was trying to keep her mind away from the invasion until its success was unquestioned. The way you do when you love a person who's very sick, you don't even want the weight of your thought to be added to the burden until the crisis is past. That's the way she explained it. And then this casual acquaintance went on to give me more of a lesson in philosophy. She said, oh, yes, I pray, but I don't pray for my boys' safety only. I try to pray for the most possible protection for all of them, and for the final triumph of good. Now, wasn't that a wonderful thing to get in the lunch counter, Clyde?
Very.
I thought so. And then I went to pay my check, and there was a young girl chatting with the cashier. And just as I came up, the cashier said, well, what are you going to do this summer now that school is out? And the girl's reply was, oh, I'm just going to loaf. And she was a girl who was obviously old enough to join the Cadet Nurse Corps, and certainly she was hale and hearty enough to work with the Women's Land Army, or volunteer for civilian hospital service, or Red Cross work, or any one of a dozen places where she's needed.
Don't you think, though, that she's an exception?
I hope so. I know that every woman with somebody actually in service, if it's only a dear friend, is saying silent prayers and working harder than ever today at whatever her job is. You who are at home are taking comfort from the old familiar chores that have to be done in the kitchen. Isn't it funny how washing dishes or beating a rug or beating up a cake can take you over a tough emotional spot? Or concentrating on the patriotic business of making every bit of food count, something like that.
You know, the women of the European underground certainly know what it is not to waste anything. I can't help thinking what a great help a basic food like our old-style bread would be to all those hungry men, women, and children.
That's true. Of course, that makes it easy to understand why American homemakers who are old-style fans also qualify as non-wasters of the favorite family food. Did you ever notice that when the man in uniform comes back on furlough, one thing that makes him feel at home immediately is to let him forage in the icebox and make himself some sandwiches and serve him some coffee with them?
The sandwiches made with old-style bread have old-fashioned flavor in every slice. One reason for old-style's tempting taste is its true wheat flavor, reminding you of golden, hearty grain kernels.
Well, some of the most enjoyable luncheons, Clyde, as well as other meals of the day, have been built around old-style sandwiches, old-style bread, because every smart homemaker knows what a wonderful addition that home-baked flavor makes to any kind of eating.
And old style tastes like homemade bread because it's made from a genuine woman's recipe and allowed to rise overnight. So anyone who has ever tried old style is sure to use all of its goodness in one delicious form or another.
Yes, Grandma knew a good loaf when she made one, and we now know the modern counterpart of Grandma's baking. It's old style bread.
You can buy old style bread, the standby of every meal, at any one of the friendly Bohack food department stores in Brooklyn and Long Island. By the way, Adelaide, your speaking of the girl who was planning to loaf this summer made me think that she wouldn't exist in any country actually mobilized on a wartime basis, would she?
I should say not. Why, in England, even the younger school children are organized for vacation work. They're part of the Land Army, of course, among many other activities, but perhaps the most amazing thing is the volunteer work they do for the Royal Army Ordnance Corps. They'll do this year, as they did last summer, handle thousands and thousands of shipping tons of supplies for the Army, unloading trucks, checking, packing, counting everything from clothing to nuts and bolts. They don't get paid for it, you know. And then there are 600 girls working somewhere in England, girls whose average age is a little older, about 17, and they're doing very dangerous work for the Ministry of Supply as chemical analysts. They check every batch of explosive before it goes into the shell casings.
Well, Adelaide, any women taking part in the actual invasion, do you think?
Well, I think you know that, Clyde. You know certainly that the nurses always go with the troops, but this time they're not going to be the only ones. The British estimate that something like, I think it's 200,000 ATs will take part in the invasion, are taking part in it right now. The ATs, of course, are the equivalent of our WACs. They call them the Auxiliary Territorial Service, I think it is. And the first of them went ashore as soon as a beachhead was established. Those were the ones in the Signals and Communications branch. And next went drivers, clerks, and cooks to drive and repair motor equipment, handle records of supplies and Army pay books and so on, and to cook. And our own WACs have been in England for 2 years, living at Allied Women's headquarters, and I think it's reasonable to suppose that they'll have first-hand invasion news to tell their grandchildren, too. And certainly the trained girl workers of the OWI will be much in demand in the field of communications. And, let's see, isn't it amazing? This is probably the first time in history that women as an actual part of an army have gone in with an invasion.
I should think the women will be quite thrilled.
I imagine they are. And the canteen workers of all countries will have plenty to do. In England, they call them the NAFIs, you know.
NAAFIS. That's one I hadn't heard, Adelaide.
Well, it stands for Navy, Army, and Air Force Institute. And there are 2,000 of them volunteered to do canteen work right up close to the firing line. And then the YMCA will have girls taking care of mobile canteens, too, and they'll not only know how to serve tea and cakes with a smile, they'll know how to fix the truck when it breaks down. You know, these women all make me feel like a sissy.
Well, the home front women in England are just as energetic, of course.
Oh, my goodness, yes. The girls who do ENSA work, that's Entertainment National Service Association, same as our USO. Certain selected and tried and true members of that organization are ready and waiting with their prettiest washable evening dresses all packed, ready to follow the troops with special entertainment units as soon as the canteen girls get rest billets established. I wonder if any invasion was ever thought out in such detail as this one. Why, even the girls who work in government offices in London are all set to live and eat right in their offices in case the transportation system breaks down because of needs for the second front. And housewives are all stocked up with emergency foods as much as possible in case there should be reprisal air raids from Germany so that they won't upset things by going out and standing in line, getting in the way.
You know, I imagine the air raid service in England is taken a lot more seriously than it is by some of the members of ours here.
Yes, well, it has to be. Every air raid warden is on tiptoe over there with preparation. And then the women who belong to the Women's Voluntary Services are doing a magnificent job. So are ours here, incidentally. But over there, they're catching up on loose ends everywhere, trying to foresee every emergency, getting everything wrapped up and labeled before it happens, you might say. It's the kind of intense preparation that we just can't comprehend over here, never having had a real emergency cracking a whip over us. But, of course, it's not the British women alone in Europe who are ready.
Well, I know you have something to say about other United Nations women, Adelaide, but May I just say a final word for a sponsor?
Well, of course.
Well, this is the time of year when there's never enough space to store all those winter woolens, those heavy blankets, those messy odds and ends.
Ah, yes. Well, I can't think of any better way to solve your space and storage problems than with Easy Do closets and chests and wardrobes. Now, that style called roll-a chest, for instance, is grand because it rolls so easily wherever you want to store it. And then there's the Easy Do glide chest that glides right under the bed and out of the way. And both the roll-a chest and the glide chest are easy, just as easy to move as their names would have you believe. And at the same time, they're sturdy and unusually roomy.
Well, for any of our listeners who haven't seen these two grand Easy Do products, you have a pleasant surprise in store. The roller chest is high, wide, and handsome. The glide chest is extremely long and wide, yet high enough to fit comfortably under a bed.
Yes, you can tell by Clyde's descriptions of the roller chest and the glide chest that they're both perfect for storing blankets and woolens and clothing. And while you're putting your winter things away, you probably have an urge to do a bit of redecorating, too?
Well, in that case, we have just the booklet you need, the Easy Do booklet that you can have simply by sending a postcard with your name and address to Adelaide Hawley, WEAF, Radio City, New York.
Yes, you might send that postcard to me, Adelaide Hawley, WEAF, Radio City, New York, and ask for both the Easy Do booklet and the Bachrach booklet.
Well, now, what about the women of Holland and Belgium and some of the occupied countries?
Oh, you can be sure that they're doing all they possibly can. Of course, not too much is known about them because a good many of their activities are carried on in the underground. But in the Netherlands, the women are hiding and feeding the men who do the fighting. Incidentally, underground Dutchmen are referred to in a phrase in Dutch, which means being on the bicycle, because that's the only way they can get around. The women in the university towns of Delft and Amsterdam also hide and feed the students who've refused to attend that's a very good word, isn't it?
Germinated is very good.
Yes, German-dominated classrooms is what I was going to say. In many places, they've turned printers and typesetters, publishing underground newspapers. But perhaps the most outstanding characteristic of the Dutch woman is her stubborn resistance to the Nazis in every way that she dares. And then I think I might just mention about the Norwegian women, inasmuch as June 7th is the anniversary of the fall of Norway in 1940, as you said, Clyde. I think the story of Norway indicates that a woman's strength a country's strength, is certainly no greater than its women. In Norway, the most important underground work has been done in the kitchen by the housewife. Hunger and starvation would have been far worse had it not been for the resourceful meals turned out by the housewives from their tiny store of potatoes and bread, plus sometimes a bit of fish. And women have proved and are proving to be good at the tough routine jobs that the underground requires. I think all these women of the United Nations can give us great courage and inspiration and strength. And incidentally, tomorrow we're going to have a guest who was a member of the underground in France to tell of his actual experiences. And now, until we meet again, goodbye.
Goodbye, too, from Clyde Cattell. But both Adelaide Hawley and I'll be with you again tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Adelaide Hawley's program has been a WEAF presentation. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Station WEAF, New York.
It's time to say hello. I'd like to let you know each time that we meet, these moments are sweet, my dear one.
Yes, it's time to say hello to Alice Cornell with her soothing way of singing and playing. So sit back and relax for a few minutes, hear your favorite songs, and have a memory or two.
A tune that is old, a melody new, I'll sing for you.
Hello there. You may easily carry on with whatever you're doing. You see, the whole idea in back of these next 15 minutes is to help you carry on with your morning routine by giving you all of the music you requested to hear, and I'm mighty glad I've been chosen to sing and play them for you. For it's an honor, and it certainly is a pleasure. Here's your first one.
Blue moon, you saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Blue moon, you knew just what I was there for. You heard me saying a prayer for someone I really could care for. And then there suddenly appeared before me the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. And when I looked, the moon had turned to gold. Blue moon, now I'm no longer alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. And then there suddenly appeared before me the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. And when I looked, the moon had turned to gold. Blue moon, now I'm no longer alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own.
There's a musical playing on Broadway now called Dream with Music. And believe me, that show is a beautiful dream. Wish you could all see it. To those of you who have, here's your request for the hit ballad from Dream with Music, Love at Second Sight.
I didn't look twice when I first saw you. But maybe if I'd had second sight, I'd have noticed the day that my heart behaved, and the time that we've wasted we might have saved. For now I've looked twice, and now I see you. The future is clear, the land is bright, and heaven is nearer. And if I've reckoned right, I'm falling in love at second sight. Time that we've wasted, we might have saved. And heaven is nearer, and if I've reckoned right,
good citizens of our country have done well in popularizing certain melodies that have gone down in musical history as the best loved songs. This request has arrived from all over every state in the Union, I believe, including our friends in Canada, who wish to hear Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home, a band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. If you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, just tell all my friends I'm a-coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Carry me home.
The name Nick Kinney is very familiar to millions of people because of his popular radio column in one of our New York newspapers, also because of his success as a composer of songs and poems. Mr. Kinney has graciously given me the permission to read this poem to you on my program. It's titled, They Call Me Radio. I am a giant, old as time, yet young to you on earth. You've just begun to feel my strength, but do not grasp my worth. The sun and the moon are known to me. I gossip with the stars. I plumb the ocean's farthest depths and laugh at man-made bars. I roam through mountains, streams, and lakes, forever on the go, unmarked by time, a guard of space. They call me Radio. Now may I sing and play another of our best loved songs, My Buddy.
Nights are long since you went away. I think about you all through the day. My buddy, my buddy. Nobody quite so true. Miss your voice, the touch of your hand, just long to know that you understand. My buddy, my buddy, your buddy misses you. the touch of your hand. Just long to know that you understand, my buddy, my buddy, your buddy misses you.
'Tis time now for one of your favorite current hits. You might as well hum along, too, 'cause by now you're quite familiar with this melody. I wish that I could hide inside this letter and seal me up and send me out to you. What a surprise in store, they'd bring me to your door. I'd pop right out and kiss you like you've never been kissed before. We'd be so happy we could cry together, and then we'd love the way we used to do. I wish that I could hide inside this letter and seal me up and send me out to you. I wish that I could hide inside this letter and seal me up and bring me out to you. What a surprise in store, they'd bring me to your door. I'd pop right out and kiss you like you've never been kissed before. And we'd be so happy if we could cry together, and then we'd love the way we used to do. I wish that I could hide inside this letter and seal me up and send me out to you. Well, I wish that I could hide inside this radio, but that's only wishing. So I'll meet you tomorrow, the same time.
We interrupt this program to bring you the latest invasion news. Here is Elmer Peterson.
German long-range guns in the Pas-de-Calais area have turned loose a violent barrage against Dover and the Dover area. Approximately 40 rounds of heavy-caliber shells fell in the Dover-Folkestone area across a distance of 21 miles. This renewed shelling of the British coast comes at the same time as Nazi reports that Allied amphibious troops have attempted a new invasion of France directly across the narrow straits of Dover. There is no Allied confirmation for this German reports. In fact, our own headquarters say simply that they have no comment to make. However, this report indicates Nazi fears of new Allied landings. It also calls new attention to the general belief that Allied strategy may be expanded shortly into new offensives. Another item of late news is the first specific report of our losses from airborne operations. 12 C-47 troop carriers and 12 gliders were lost last night.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Tune to WEAF for the up-to-the-minute coverage of the invasion and the latest bulletins as they come off the wire.
Just a little love, a little kiss. I would give you all my life for this. As I hold you fast and bend above you, and I hear you whispering, I love you.
The makers of Babel present the new radio drama, Laura Lawton. The story of a girl who didn't know what she could do until she had to do it. A story of courage and love and life, which takes place in the most exciting city in the world today, in Washington. makers, if you're interested in removing dirt and stains from your painted woodwork, you'll welcome this letter from Mrs. Helen Hathaway, York Village, Maine. Mrs. Hathaway writes, quote, "After having tried many different cleaners, I'm thoroughly convinced that Babbo is the finest cleaner I've ever used. Yes, Babbo is absolutely tops. It's so quick, so thorough, so easy. Why, I just used it a few minutes ago to clean the painted woodwork of my pantry, and you should just see it now. The woodwork's as bright and shining as new, and smells so fresh and clean. What's more, I use Babbo to clean my bathroom, too, because it removes discolorations and stains in a jiffy, makes my fixtures sparkle and gleam. Now that I've proved everything you say about Babbo is true, I'll never be without it." Unquote. Thank you, Mrs. Hathaway. And ladies, once you try Babbo, you'll never be without it either, because Babbo is so quick, so thorough, so easy to use. And here's why. Today, it's grease that causes 90% of your hard scrubbing and scouring. Babbo was created specifically to dissolve grease. And with grease gone, all dirt and stains wipe away gently and quickly. Why, you'll say you're through household tasks in half the time. Prove this for yourself. Ask your grocer today for Babbo in the famous green can with the big white letters, BAB-O. And now, today's chapter of Laura Lawton. This afternoon, Laura's brother-in-law, distinguished Rex Lawton, came to the shipyards after Peter Carver had been gravely injured and suggested that Peter be brought to his gracious, centuries-old Virginia home, Rexford Court. And now Peter and Laura, Laura's secretary, May Case, and his 18-year-old sister, Gail, are in Rex's home. It is night, and Laura has come downstairs alone. She has found her way into a dimly lit room where she sinks into a chair by the window. And Laura is thinking.
I can't face it, but I've got to. I'm guilty of what's happened to Peter. I should have told Peter that Happy was dead, that he'd been shot. I should have told May that Mr. Castle was near the shipyards last night, that he asked me to get him a pass to be in the yards today during the launching. Oh, but I don't know. I don't know that Mr. Castle did get into the yards without a pass. I've no reason to think he was connected with the accident. I haven't thought Peter knew what had happened to Happy. I haven't thought that he might have quarreled with him and shot him. Mr. Castle says that's what happened. But I've known it couldn't be true. And yet, Peter wouldn't admit that he saw Happy that night. He acted as if he had something to hide. And now he's terribly injured. Somehow, I'm positive Russ Gilman is back of all that's happened.
Laura, dear?
Oh, May, have you come from the doctor?
Oh, dear, I've been telephoning.
I was upstairs, but the nurse, Miss Bradley, said there was nothing I could do. She told me to leave. I don't seem to know anything. She doesn't, and Dr. Marshall just motions me away when I try to talk to him.
Did you get Gail to sleep?
Yes.
That's fine. Oh, Laura, you must be very tired. You look simply exhausted.
You must be tired, too. You've been carrying the whole burden. I haven't been any help. I haven't stood it half as well as you.
Well, this would be no time to go to pieces. The only thing I can do for Peter is to go ahead with his work and keep the accident out of the papers, if it's possible. Thank heaven the newspaper men left the yards this afternoon just after the launching.
You don't want it known that Peter's badly hurt.
He wouldn't want it.
May, he still doesn't recognize any of us. He doesn't know he's been brought to Rexford Court. And I've wondered if we...
No. Now, don't worry about his having been brought here. Dr. Marshall thought it was best. Oh, Lamb, now I'm going to need you to help me during the next few days.
And I've got to show more courage. That's what you mean.
No, not that. You don't lack courage.
May, if anything should happen, if he shouldn't get well.
Darling, we must steel ourselves against thinking that. Now, soon after the accident, you said very much what I'm saying now. We can't break down. And you mustn't, because Peter is depending on you. Gail is your responsibility. And Peter depends on you as though you were her older sister.
There were only something I could do besides wait to hear how he is.
You've been helping in every way you can. And I'll need you tomorrow. That's why you must be careful of your strength now. Go to bed soon and get some rest.
But she can go upstairs now, May.
Oh, Rex, have you talked with the doctor?
Yes, have you, Rex?
Well, there's no change. But I got permission for Laura to see Peter for a very few minutes.
Thank you, Rex.
She's gone, May. She can't hear you.
Oh, she'll be ill herself if she's not careful.
Well, it's because of what you were telling me, isn't it? This is the aftermath of days of nerve strain?
Yes, but did you talk to Dr. Marshall?
Yes.
Well, Rex.
Peter's badly hurt.
Oh.
How dangerously can't be determined yet. There's a possibility of a spinal injury.
Oh.
Well, he has no injury that'll mean an operation. You already know that.
But a spinal injury may be...
No, we don't know. But don't tell Laura anything.
No.
Tell me about the accident.
Well, I've told you all I know, Rex. There was a faulty support under the keel of the ship.
Well, how was that possible? The ship was launched safely.
Yes, but after the launching, the timber crashed down and Peter was pinned under it.
How could such a thing have happened, May?
Oh, it will be investigated, Rex. The yard superintendent, Mr. Johnson, says what you say. How could it have happened? It's not the kind of accident that happens in our yards.
Well, now, what is it about Laura's thinking someone was in the yards who shouldn't be there?
Well, for weeks she's had an obsession that she was being followed, that there was something or someone threatening her.
But there have been mysterious telephone calls.
Yes.
And all this persecution began after Russell Gilman tried to get control of the shipyards.
Yes, Rex. Now, I've told you as much as I know. And oh, what a relief it was to be able to. I don't know what connection, if any, Laura's hysteria has with the accident. I just can't think. There was that creature Happy's being in Washington some time ago.
That's strange, May. I think it's very strange. Peter was so disturbed about that, so angry. And then dropped the matter. And you say that some of the odd things Laura has said have been concerning Happy.
Yes. Oh, but none of it has any meaning, Rex. Nothing has any meaning except Peter's being so desperately hurt. So desperately hurt.
Yes, come in, Mrs. Lawton.
I may stay with Mr. Carr for a while, Miss Bradley.
For a very short while. Mr. Rex Lawton got permission from Dr. Marshall.
Oh, Peter.
I'll be in the next room. The connecting door is open.
I'll sit here beside him.
Well, don't disturb him. I'll be just in here.
Yes, Miss Bradley. Oh, Peter, darling. Peter, I hope we did the right thing in bringing you here from the yards. I hope you're no worse. But I know you aren't. Everything that can be done for you is being done. See you lying there so quiet and not be able to help you.
No.
Darling, if you could recognize me, I think I could endure it. I wouldn't be so afraid then.
No, Laura.
You say my name, but you don't know I'm here.
I know.
You know? You're trying to say something.
Laura?
Yes, darling, it is Laura. Peter?
Yes, Laura.
You do know I'm here.
Something to tell you.
Oh, hush. I mustn't let you talk.
About Happy.
Happy?
Laura, listen.
Oh, you must be better. You do recognize me.
Something to tell you.
Yes, Peter.
Happy and important.
Are you trying to tell me something about Happy?
Yes. I want you to know
What?
Mrs. Lawton, I asked
He wants to tell me something.
You will have to go out.
But Miss Bradley has something on his mind.
I'm sorry. You will have to go out right now. He mustn't be disturbed.
Miss Bradley, when a person is ill and is worried about something, it's better to...
You'd better talk to Dr. Marshall about it, Mrs. Lawton. I'm following his instructions. If Mr. Carver tries to talk to you, you can't be allowed to see him.
But he wants me with him. He tries to talk because there's something he wants to tell me. Perhaps something he wants me to do.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Lawton. No.
The door is shut. Laura, in an agony of mind, wonders what Peter wanted to tell her concerning Happy. A sudden fear for Peter blots out the question. Sudden fear for Peter, which sends her to Dr. Marshall for reassurance, for hope. You'll want to hear tomorrow's deeply human chapter of Laura Lawton. When you clean white canvas or buckskin shoes, try the new fast, easy way thousands are now discovering with Babo. You'll be amazed. Just sprinkle a little Babo on a moist cloth, wipe the shoes, and dirt smears and stains come off on your cloth. Grime is not merely covered, it's off, and you know white dust to rub off on everything. The reason Babo cleans white shoes so easily is the same reason it saves time and work in all household cleaning tasks. On bathtubs, woodwork, stoves, refrigerators, pots and pans. Babo dissolves the grease that practically all grime today clings to. And with this grease dissolved, dirt and stains wipe off in a flash. A little Babo goes further, works faster too. So Babo saves you time and money every day you clean. Next time you buy groceries, ask for grease-dissolving Babo, spelled B-A-B-O. Today, with food prices so high, learn the inexpensive way to get your vegetables. Get new Aunt Polly's Soup Mix. Choose from 6 tempting varieties. Aunt Polly's Soup Mix is ready in minutes. One envelope that you get for pennies gives you approximately half again as much soup for your money as corresponding canned soups. And it's good soup, rich in nourishment, with precious vitamins and goodness of garden-fresh vegetables sealed right in. Today, get Aunt Polly's Vegetable Noodle Soup Mix. You've just heard another chapter of the new and inspiring radio drama, Laura Lawton, which is on the air at this time every Monday through Friday. Ford Bond, speaking for B.T. Babbitt Incorporated, makers of Babo and distributors of Aunt Polly's Soup Mix. Listen to David Harum later today on this station. Hear the story of the 2 sisters, one beautiful, the other seemingly plain, and what happens when the soldier fiancé of one sister returns from overseas. That's the story on David Harum at 11:45 a.m. Eastern Wartime today.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
(10:15 a.m. Eastern Wartime, WEAF, New York.
Good morning. This is Robert St. John speaking for Alka-Seltzer and bringing you news and people in the news. Because of the importance of the news today, the Miles Laboratories has dispensed with its commercial announcements so you may have nothing but news. And so here it is, the news. This is what the men who made the plans called D-Day +1. Right now it's late afternoon on the beaches of France. The second day of the invasion is nearly over, and here is the situation as it appears to me from the dozens of battlefront dispatches I've been reading in the past couple of hours. The first phase of the invasion is going well. The Allies now control about 50 miles of the French coast. German opposition is still very meager on the ground. German opposition out on the waters of the English Channel is noticeable by its absence. There just isn't any. German opposition in the air is beginning to make its appearance. Our forces have penetrated as far as 12 miles inland, but we are just beginning to run up against the real German army, the tactical reserves, as Berlin calls them.
it's clear that Nazi Marshal Rommel has not yet decided whether this French landing is the real thing or whether it's a feint designed to draw his attention to the Cherbourg area while we prepare other landings somewhere else. If and when Rommel does decide that yesterday's attack is the big attack, he will start throwing the 500,000 or more men he has in Western Europe at our beachhead. When he does, the battle will then start in earnest. It may not begin for a week or 10 days. It will take that long for the Germans to make the necessary transfer of men and equipment. The success of the ultimate battle will depend entirely on what our side has been able to do in that week or 10 days. How many men and how much heavy equipment we have been able to land in France during that time. That is why it's so vital that we command the air and the sea and keep functioning in high gear during this critical period. That is why you hear words of caution emanating from London and Washington. That is why they keep saying, so far, and we have won the first round of the contest. And now let me tell you what's been happening while you were sleeping last night or having your peaceful breakfast this morning. Enormous Allied reinforcements have been pouring across the Channel and onto the beaches and into the gaps in the Nazi line of steel and cement fortifications along the coast, gaps in the much-vaunted Atlantic Wall. During the hours just before and after sunrise, a 50-mile-long train of gliders towed by giant Allied transport planes put down great numbers of Allied troops onto the soil of France. Berlin says that we now have 25,000 men over there, all of whom have been landed from the air. Now, if that's true, then we've accomplished a miracle in that phase of the invasion. One gathers from the dispatches that there have also been landings, many landings, today already from the sea. The airborne troops have seized many new key positions on the Cherbourg Peninsula, that finger of land which points toward the British Isles and is just 80 or 90 miles from the English ports out of which the invasion fleet set sail. That finger of land which would provide a very good road to take us straight to Paris. Today's train of glider planes was almost as impressive a sight for those who had ringside seats along the English Channel as yesterday's must have been. We now learn that the original airborne train was made up of 900 great C-47 transport planes and gliders. The train was 9 planes wide and was 200 miles long as it thundered over the English Channel just 300 feet above the water. Today's train was 50 miles long. We also learned today that Allied planes flew 13,000 flights back and forth across the Channel and the beachheads during the first 24 hours of the invasion. The latest Supreme Headquarters communique, the third issued so far, says that some French towns have been captured and that airborne troops have seized many bridges and roads. We've just learned that it may not be long before our side has some airports in France, airports from which fighters and bombers could operate against the Luftwaffe and against our enemy on the ground. Somehow, big American bulldozers have been landed in France, and they are already leveling off airstrips right within the sound and smell of the battlefield. Another report says that the Paris-Cherbourg Railroad has been cut. The U.S. battleships Texas, Nevada, and Arkansas, and the British battleships Nelson, Warspite, and Ramillies are among the 600 or more Allied naval craft churning around right now in the English Channel, lobing tons of shells into Nazi positions on the ground. For nearly 2 hours early today, Hitler's Big Berthas, those long-range Nazi guns on the French coast north of the invasion beaches, shelled the cliffs of Dover and shelled ships moving around in the Channel. Sometimes as many as 5 or 6 of the tremendous shells were whistling over at one time. Supreme Allied Headquarters tells us today that in the first wave of troops to hit the European continent, there were a considerable number of British commandos and American Rangers, those men without fear, those men trained in so many tricky and stealthy kinds of warfare. Here's an interesting little angle in the glider story. The first glider to land yesterday on enemy-held territory was nicknamed the Fighting Falcon. It was purchased with $20,000 worth of war bonds subscribed by students in Greenville, Michigan. And now I have quite a human story for you. A story written by war correspondent Howard Cowan immediately after he returned today from riding in that great glider train to France. The reporter was in one of those transports which had a glider full of men hitched on behind. He says that when the transport got back to its base in Britain, it looked exactly like a can of tinned peas which the bride has tackled with a can opener she hasn't yet learned how to use. Plenty of Nazi flak found its target in that transport. The war correspondent at one point in his dispatch wrote, "Maybe this sounds as if I were scared." Well, I was. It was the first time any of us in the plane had been under fire. And no wonder he was scared, as he puts it. A 20-millimeter German shell sawed its way through the fuselage right next to the place where he was sitting, and then it went off with a noise like the noise a firecracker makes when it's set off inside a tin can. Now let me quote you a few paragraphs from that young reporter's report. He wrote, "As we crossed the English Channel with our glider tied on behind, I looked down and saw dozens of little Allied rescue launches skittering around in the water. They apparently were just practicing. All was very calm down there. But it was a different story when the Cherbourg Peninsula came in sight. From a tiny island offshore came the first ack-ack, but the bursts were far away. Now we were over. The door was opened, and dust and acrid smoke, like that from a burning building, swirled inside the plane. I counted a dozen fires on the perimeter at this end of the Allied beachhead. Occasionally there was a big flash and puffs of smoke, but that was about all there was to see on the ground. Then we got over enemy lines, and the machine guns started. We hadn't touched loose the glider yet, and our speed still left something to be desired. I was on my knees peering out a window, bundled up in my Mae West life preserver, my parachute, and my flak suit. The latter garment isn't a suit at all, but a steel-ribbed canvas vest, fashioned along the lines of an umpire's chest protector, only it also takes care of your back from the collar button all the way down to the tip of your spine. That leaves arms, legs, and ribs feeling very naked. Red and green tracers, and they're not as fast as in the movies, red and green tracers drifted up on the right at an angle of about 45 degrees well ahead of our ship. For every one of those colored lights, there are 4 bullets which you can't see. One of the men in the crew said, "Those guys in front of us are sure catching it." And then we zipped through a fusillade like a train passing switch signals. It sounded as if the plane had run into a hailstorm, or as if somebody were trying to cut it in two with a meat saw. I drew my neck into the flak suit until my tin hat just balanced on my shoulders. All of a sudden, the plane lurched forward with a jerk, and I looked back in time to see the glider rope go limp. The glider soared upward a moment, then banked gracefully and coasted down to earth. On both sides, 20-millimeter shells were coming up, beating a tattoo on the ship, a noise which rose above the roar of the engines. It was easy to tell by the increased pitch of the engines that we were going places very fast. I looked back at multicolored tracers still crisscrossing the path of the plane which followed us. Away off to the left, a big rocket shell was wandering around the sky. It didn't seem to be aimed at anything in particular. It was a far piece away, and thus it was quite pretty to watch. The racket stopped abruptly, and one man in the crew sheepishly picked up a loaded Tommy gun which had been sliding around on the floor between us. He had intended to poke it out the door and empty it at the Germans. Now he grinned and said, "I plumb forgot all about it in the excitement." Well, that's the rather human story written by an AP war correspondent just after getting back to Britain today from a little trip to France in that great glider train. And now here are several bulletins which have just come in. Supreme Headquarters has just announced that Lieutenant General Omar Bradley is commanding the 1st American Army in the assault on Europe. Here's a little story from Annapolis, Maryland, which says that Midshipman Ernest John King, Jr., son of the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Navy, is among the men in the graduating class at the Naval Academy today. And here's a bulletin from the 9th Air Force in Britain which says 12 C-47 troop carriers and 12 gliders were reported missing today from overnight reinforcing operations beyond the beachheads in Normandy. This is the first specific report of losses from airborne operations since the invasion began. And now here are a few little miscellaneous dispatches from the French front. A U.S. 9th Air Force pilot said he saw American soldiers in France standing alongside roads and leaning on their rifles, awaiting chow during a low-level flight he made over the beachhead. Well, that would seem to indicate that things are going rather well. Here's the weirdest story of the day. The German radio has just declared that German parachutists were used in combating Allied airborne troops even before they landed in France. The radio tells this rather preposterous story. It says these Nazi parachutists were dropped on top of Allied gliders and set them on fire. Well, that is rather hard to believe. And here's a story from Supreme Headquarters. It says one of America's best-known major generals was demoted to lieutenant colonel and sent home for indicating in advance the time of D-Day. It seems it all happened at a cocktail party in London about 2 months ago. The officer very indiscreetly told his guests that he had an idea when D-Day would be. He told them that, on my honor, the invasion will take place before June 15th. For that little bit of gossiping, he was demoted and sent home. And now here are some odd little sidelights on the big story from around this country. In Corpus Christi, Texas, mothers and fathers of 50 servicemen staged a D-Day parade of penance. They crawled 2 blocks on their hands and knees to the San Jose Church in the Latin American quarter, and there they prayed for victory. One 80-year-old woman who crawled those 2 blocks on her hands and knees said she had 3 sons overseas. In Galveston, Texas, the news of the invasion started music floating from the doors of Trinity Episcopal Church. The Reverend Edmund H. Gibson was pecking out America on the chimes with 1 finger. When Tom Rice, city editor of the local paper, went by on his way to work, he heard the music, and so he stopped to relieve the pastor, and he played several hymns with 1 finger. Out of Griffin, Georgia, comes the story of a newspaper's invasion jitters. The war extra of the Griffin Evening News came out in schedule, but 3 pages were upside down. And here's another newspaper story from Poplar Bluff, Missouri. The news force of the Poplar Bluff Daily American Republic were working at top speed to get out an extra when the telephone rang. The conversation went like this. Is the invasion on? Yes. Are you putting out an extra? Yes. Well, I don't want to wait up for it. Would you please read me some of the news so I can go back to bed? The editor's answer, well, I'm afraid it's censored. Well, that's the news. And this is Robert St. John speaking for Alka-Seltzer. As you've noticed, our sponsor, the Miles Laboratories, has omitted all of its commercial announcements today in order that I might bring you every bit of the news which has broken in the past few hours. And now, from the NBC newsroom in New York, goodbye for a little while.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
.30 a.m. Eastern Wartime. Your dial is set at 660, WEAF, New York.
The makers of Old Dutch Cleanser present... Helpmate, the story of Linda Harper. If you've ever lived in a place where the water was hard, you know how much harder it makes your cleaning, But not if you use Old Dutch. No, ma'am, for Old Dutch Cleanser has a fast-acting grease dissolver that cuts stubborn soap curds that form on your sink or make a rim around the bathtub. And in addition to a grease dissolver, Old Dutch also has seismotite to wipe away the dirt. This means you get concentrated cleaning. So even if your cleaning is complicated by hard water, you can get it done easily and quickly with Old Dutch Cleanser. In fact, when scientific laboratories recently made tests on all leading cleansers, Old Dutch cleaned 69 more kitchen sinks per can than any other cleanser tested. So you see, those 2 extra ingredients, a grease dissolver plus seismotite, can mean a lot to you.
Because even if you have hard water where you live, you can get extra cleaning help with Old Dutch. Fast, safe help. So start using Old Dutch Cleanser right away. Get a can the next time you shop. And now, Helpmate. In order to vindicate Steve, it is necessary for Steve and Cheryl Brooks to get Margaret Lee to agree to testify that it was Mary James who murdered Eddie Blake. The first step in that direction was to get Margaret Lee to admit she possessed such knowledge. Steve and Cheryl hit on the idea of Joe Christmas pretending to be friendly with the girl. And as you know, their plan has worked. For we heard Margaret Lee say,
"Can you make a long-distance phone call?"
I reckon I could.
I don't mean here. I mean from someplace where they wouldn't know. Steve Harper and that Mrs. Brooks.
There's other phones in Claremont I could use.
Then you call Mrs. Mary James in Axminster. Tell her I'm here. And she'll come here, and she'll pay you, or she'll send somebody.
Yes, and she could come here and get you, and I'd be left out in the cold. I may be old, but I ain't no fool. You're getting something out of this. You're being paid to keep your mouth shut. Now either let me in on it, or let's not even talk about it anymore. I reckon Steve and Cheryl will be back pretty soon.
All right, I'll tell you. Mary James killed Eddie Blake. She's the wife of the mayor in Axminster.
Killed somebody, did you say?
Yes, Eddie Blake. That's the murder Steve Harper's accused of. I heard her do it. I know all about it. And I'm scared to death to get mixed up in this. I'm in a big enough jam already. You get in touch with Mary James. Tell her you know that if you want to, but get me out of here. Whatever you get out of it, I don't care.
Is that all? Just that you do know this Mary James killed this feller? What'd you say his name was?
Eddie Blake. Mary James killed him. I heard it.
Young lady, we hated to do this to you. We hated to trick you this way.
Trick me?
But when an innocent man's life's at stake, well, you'll do anything. Come on in, Steve. Come in, Cheryl.
Now our scene resumes. Steve and Cheryl have just entered the room. We hear the defiant girl saying,
"Oh, you think you're smart, huh? You tricked me into believing you'd help me, and you got me to tell, huh? Well, what good is it going to do you?"
Oh, wait, Joe. Let me talk to her. Now, wait, Steve. Miss Lee, Steve and I were right outside the door there, and we heard what you just told Joe. You said it was Mary James who murdered Eddie Blake. Now, as long as you know that, and you know we know you know it, do you mean to say you wouldn't repeat that testimony to save Steve?
That's exactly what I mean to say.
But the three of us, Cheryl and Steve and me, heard you say it.
And I still say, what are you going to do about it?
Look, Miss Lee, would you let me be tried and probably convicted for a crime you know I didn't commit?
That's your lookout. I'm looking out for me. And I'm not going to testify to anything.
Why won't you testify?
That's my business.
She's afraid, Cheryl, that's why.
Who are you afraid of? Mary James?
That's my business.
What if we said you knew who killed Eddie Blake?
And it'd still be my word against yours.
She's right, Joe. Wait a minute. Miss Lee, do you realize that if you agree to testify, it'll mean Fred James won't be mayor of Axminster any longer? Don't you realize Mary James couldn't do anything to you?
You're a fine one to talk. She's got you on the run.
Oh, yes, but that's because Steve can't prove he didn't kill Eddie Blake. If you'd agree to testify, Steve wouldn't be on the run.
And do you want this on your conscience the rest of your life, Miss Lee?
I'd rather have it on my conscience and be alive than be found up some alley.
Look, a minute ago you were asking Joe to let you get in touch with Mary James. How long do you think she wants you around? What do you think she'll eventually do to you?
Are you going to trust a murderer?
All I want is to get out of here. I was tricked into coming here. I was tricked into telling what I know. Now I want to get out of here.
Where would you go? Back to Mary James?
No, if you want to know it. Just as far away from her as possible. And as far away from you, too.
I'm afraid
there's no need talking to her tonight.
Honey, you're just plain scared. You don't realize it, but we're your friends.
Friends? Fine friends you are. If you're my friends, why don't you let me get out of here?
Honey, you're not leaving here until you agree to testify that Mary James killed that man.
Well, I won't testify. And you're just going to keep me here until Mary James finds out where I am. I know what she'll have done with me if she finds me. You don't care what happens to me.
And you don't care what happens to Steve. Well, we do.
Wait, Cheryl. There's no need arguing with her.
Are you going to keep me here another night? Can't you see what I mean when I say every day you keep me here means one day nearer to Mary James finding out where I am?
Shh. Be quiet, everybody. There's a car just drove up, out in front, Steve.
Where, Joe?
Look through the window.
It's Mary James.
You be quiet.
There's two men getting out, Steve.
Yeah. No lights on the car either.
Looks kind of funny, maybe, huh?
Let me out of here. Please let me out of here. I knew Mary James would find me. She sent for me.
Look here, honey. Did you get in touch with Mary James?
No, but when I left Rapid City, I mentioned I was going to Claremont to a Mr. Smith. Oh, I knew she could trace me.
You reckon that's what it is, Steve? They traced her?
I don't know.
What are they doing? Are they coming in?
Please let me get out of here. I could go out the back way.
Looks like one's staying by the car. The other one's coming up the walk.
Steve, you reckon they're coming for you?
I don't know, Joe. That might be it.
Steve, look, now don't be foolish. If they have come for you, don't let them get you now.
No, Steve. Go on out the back way.
Oh, but wait a minute. We're all getting panicky about nothing.
That fella's coming up to the house, Steve.
Yeah, but it could be anything. I'm through running every time I hear the doorbell ring.
Oh, Steve, if it is somebody after you, you owe it to Linda not to let him get you now. This girl will agree to testify.
No, I won't.
You will, honey, when I get through with you.
Steve, do what Cheryl tells you. Go on out the back way.
What if they've come for me? You gotta let them take me?
He's at the door.
Now, look, Steve, don't be foolish. Here, take my key. Go on out the back door and go over to my house. Nobody'll see you.
Go on. Take it, Steve.
Well, all right.
Go on, Steve, hurry.
Well, what about me?
Take her with you. And look, Margaret Lee, if you try to get away, they'll hear you.
I'm not going to try to get away.
They'll get you sure if you do try.
Come on, Margaret.
Sounds like they mean business, huh, Cheryl?
Wait, let me close the dining room door here. Well, you want to open the front door, Joe?
How do you do?
Does a party by the name of Smith live here?
Well,
yes. Mr. Smith lives here.
Oh. You, Mrs. Smith?
No, I'm not.
We're just friends of Mr. Smith.
Oh, I see. Just friends, huh? Is Mr. Smith here?
What is it you want with him?
I want to see him about a little personal matter.
Well, Mr. Smith doesn't happen to be home right now.
Are you, expecting him back soon?
He didn't say when he'd be back.
Oh, that's too bad. I got a very important message for him. Well, it ain't for him exactly. It's for Miss Lee. 'Cause if she was here, I could give it to her.
Well, she's not here either.
Oh, you're sure of that, huh? And what's your name?
My name's Christmas. Joe Christmas.
Christmas, huh? Can you pick the funny ones, Mr. Smith?
But he's telling you the truth. His name is Christmas.
Well, now imagine that. And it says Smith. Steve Smith, right here on the doorbell. And his name's Christmas. And I suppose yours is Thanksgiving. Miss Margaret Lee?
Say, you're making a mistake. This is...
Shut up, you. See what I got here? This thing might go off and hurt somebody. If I pull the trigger... Now turn around, Mr. Smith. I said turn around. That's better.
Why, you hit him.
Yeah. Dropped him neat, didn't I? And he's out like a light. Now, come on, you.
Let go of me. Ah!
Start to yell, huh? Well, I can handle a dame like you with one hand and keep the other one over your mush. Hey, Muggsy, come help me take this babe out to the car.
A few minutes later, Steve looks out of the window from the house next door and says to a frightened girl,
Can't see anything. It's too dark. There goes our car. But everything must be all right. Come on. We're going back next door.
It's grand to have the youngsters home during the summer months, isn't it? But man alive, how they can track up a clean kitchen floor or leave a shining washbowl sticky and dirty. But listen, with Old Dutch Cleanser to help, you can clean up behind them in a jiffy. Why, with a few quick, gentle wipes of your cloth and just a little Old Dutch, you can have your linoleum spotless. And Old Dutch is not only quick and efficient, but it's safe, too. You see, there's a special combination of 2 extra ingredients in Old Dutch, one for speed and one for safety. There's a lightning-fast grease dissolver to cut the grease in a flash. And then there's famous seismotite to wipe away the dirt safely. And believe me, those 2 extra ingredients mean a lot. Mean you get extra cleaning help in Old Dutch. Why, in recent scientific tests, Old Dutch cleaned 97 more bathroom wash bowls per can than any other cleanser tested. And in every test made by these scientific laboratories, Old Dutch came out way ahead. So, when your youngsters come running home to tell you how glad they are that school's out, well, you can be glad, too. Just remember that for all the extra cleaning you'll have to do, you can get extra cleaning help with Old Dutch Cleanser. Stock up on Old Dutch right away. On the outskirts of Claremont, an automobile speeds through the night in the direction of Axminster. The driver smiles with satisfaction as he says,
Pretty slick, huh, Muggsy? I told you it wasn't too hard to locate a Mr. Smith and a Margaret Lee.
But we have an idea that smile of satisfaction isn't going to be in evidence very long. Not after Blackie and Muggsy arrive at their destination. You won't want to miss the next exciting chapter in the new, so highly human story of Helpmate at the same time tomorrow. This program is brought to you by the Cudahy Packing Company, makers of the new improved Old Dutch Cleanser, and Del Rich, the whole milk margarine.
This is the National Broadcasting Company. Around the clock and around the world, NBC reporters are standing by to bring you the latest news of the invasion. Keep tuned to WEAF, New York.
morning to you. We thought you might enjoy a little music, some of the popular tunes of yesterday and today. A little different theme for us, isn't it, Tommy? A good one, though. Keep looking for that silver lining. Here's Tommy Taylor with a tailor-made song that says the Saltwater Cowboy. He's a saltwater cowboy with the whole world for his range. Just a saltwater cowboy, and the herd he rides is strange. He's a rounding up his country's foes, wherever they may be. He's a saltwater cowboy, a United States Marine. Get along, little nippy, I can hear my singing pal. I'm taking you to pasture in a barbed wire corral. He's the salt of the earth, boy, and he's long and lank and lean. He's a saltwater cowboy, a United States Marine. Get along, little nippy, I can hear my singing pal. I'm taking you to pasture in a barbed wire corral. He's the salt of the earth, boys, and he's long and lank and lean. He's a saltwater cowboy, a United States Marine. Well, first there's Ragtime Cowboy, that drugstore cowboy, then Saltwater Cowboy, and I haven't the slightest idea what we're going to have, but the band is going to play Too Marvelous for Words, and Tommy wants to sing it too. Well, fine. Go ahead. You're just too marvelous for words, like glorious, glamorous, and that'll stand by amorous. It's all too wonderful, I'll never find the words that say enough, tell enough. I mean, they're just unswell enough. You're much too much, and just too very, very to ever be in Webster's dictionary. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you that you're marvelous, too marvelous for words. Tommy, in as much as you have sung two numbers, one right after the other, suppose you take the announcer's part and read this. Right there.
Well, Bob, I could give you a lot of factual data about the song the orchestra's going to play, who wrote it and when, but I'm not going to. You'd rather hear the orchestra play than me talk, so listen to Beautiful Dreams.
Here's another song for Tommy Taylor. Looks like a good one. The title's Good Night, Wherever You Are.
I know that the angels will watch over you tonight, wherever you are. I'll be with you, dear, no matter how near or far.
this program to bring you some bulletins from the NBC newsroom in New York. Reports coming back to an Allied fighting station in England confirm earlier dispatches that the Allies have now established a beachhead 5 to 6 miles deep at some points in France. German dispatches now claim that major battles are raging in certain sectors. The British Information Service reports that the British 6th Airborne Division has captured and is now holding bridges north of Caen, the scene where some of the heaviest fighting has been reported in the first dispatch of the invasion front. And there is this report from London. A war correspondent aboard the American cruiser Augusta says that the German 7th and 15th Armies, commanded in person by Nazi Field Marshal Rommel, are rushing armored and infantry divisions to the French beachhead front. These bulletins have come to you from the NBC newsroom in New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Gruen Curvex, watchmaking miracle. WEAF, New York.
The story of Dr. Jim Brent, brought to you by Does, the new kind of soap that does everything in your wash. It was mid-afternoon of a very busy day before Dr. Brent had a chance to do something he'd been wanting to do for some time. Pausing for a moment in his rounds, he stepped into Dr. Frazier's office and spoke to his secretary.
Would you be good enough to call me when Dr. Frazier comes in? I want to see him before he leaves the hospital today. It's really quite important.
The secretary who took Jim's message looked at him oddly as he walked out. She hadn't been there very long, but even she had heard whispered comment about the differences that existed between Dr. Brent and Dr. Frazier. Rumors about the circumstances of Dr. Brent's being asked to resign as chief of staff, and of the selection of Dr. Frazier to replace him. She knew about Dr. Brent's illness, his period of amnesia, and then his return to the hospital. One morning, she had noticed on her schedule that Janet Mercer, Dr. Frazier's stepdaughter, had been operated the night before for appendicitis by Dr. Brent. And that day, Dr. Frazier had been more difficult and exacting than ever. And now, Dr. Brent wanted to see Dr. Frazier about something important. The girl's curiosity was aroused, and later in the day, she regretted the closing of the door behind Dr. Brent as he went into the chief of staff's office.
Well, Brent, I'm glad to see you.
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Sit down, won't you?
Oh, thanks.
It was good to see you and Carol at Janet's wedding.
It was a happy occasion. Janet and Jean seem to be on the way to a pretty good life together.
Yes, so it would seem. I hope it turns out that way. I didn't get a chance to talk to Carol at the wedding, but she looked very well. Very lovely, in fact.
She is very well, thank you.
And the baby. Daughter, isn't it?
Yes. Janie's getting along fine. Dr. Frazier, I came in to see you about My position on the staff here at City.
Your, position on the staff?
Yes. I've been bringing more patients here lately than I did there for a while. I'm doing more surgery.
Oh, yes, so I've noticed, Brent.
I expect to be having a pretty full schedule before long, taking over my full practice.
Oh, that's splendid. I'm very glad to hear it. But I don't see...
Under the circumstances, I thought it might be a good idea to have the question of my membership on the staff taken up at the next staff meeting.
But why, Brent? Surely you haven't met with any difficulty in bringing your patients here, in having them receive proper care?
Oh, no, of course not. I found everyone completely cooperative. But since I was inactive for a considerable length of time...
Oh, your name has never been taken off the staff list.
Yes, I know that. I appreciate the courtesy. Because that was what it was while I wasn't practicing. But, now that I'm back at work again, I should like to have my position clarified.
Well, of course, if you feel that it's necessary.
I do. I could have had one of the other men bring the matter up, but in fairness to you as chief of staff, and inasmuch as we're in the same field, I decided to come to you about it first.
That was very considerate of you, Brent. Yeah, I'll be more than glad to bring up your name myself, if you want it done.
Thank you, Doctor.
You know, it's deeply gratifying to me to feel that we're on good enough terms for you to want to talk it over with me.
It isn't a question of the terms we're on, Fraser. It's a question of my professional standing at City Hospital. I prefer to bring my patients here. I've been associated with this hospital for many years. Quite naturally, I hesitate to establish a connection elsewhere. But I do want to be clear about just where I stand.
Yes, I see. Well, as I said, I'll bring your question before the next staff meeting. Incidentally, Doctor, I understand that your plans for a new hospital, those you're making with Bill Wiley, are well underway.
Yes, they're progressing nicely. The building is getting pretty close to completion.
So I've heard. Am I right in thinking you'll continue to bring at least part of your patients to City?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I'll certainly bring all of my regular patients here, and probably such surgical cases as we have from time to time at the Wiley Memorial.
Mm-hmm. You expect to have a good many surgical cases there?
Well, that's something we can't possibly predict.
Oh, no, I suppose not. I was wondering, Brent, whether you had selected your staff as yet.
To a certain extent. I've spoken to a number of men about it, but of course we haven't too good an idea of what our needs will be until we get going. And since there'll be very little opportunity for private patients, well, we're waiting for a while.
Yes, that does seem wise under the circumstances. You know, Brent, as I told you some time ago, I've been seriously considering establishing a clinic.
Yes, I remember you saying something about it.
However, I've about come to the conclusion that, it doesn't seem to be quite the right time to undertake such a project.
Oh, that's so?
Yes, the difficulties of building, as a matter of fact, even remodeling an old building, which was what we planned to do, are almost insurmountable.
We found it pretty slow going, that's true.
And then there's the question of staff. So many of the younger men in service. Nurses, almost impossible to get. I suppose all this is anything but news to you.
I admit it isn't easy.
I don't like to give up. I'd looked forward to the opportunities such a clinic would give me. I've been wondering if I couldn't find those same opportunities elsewhere.
It was my impression that you wanted the clinic largely as a matter of convenience.
Oh, no. I think my idea was somewhat the same as your own, Brent.
In what way?
Well, there are always new things opening up in medicine. new ways of working that are perhaps somewhat outside the scope of a hospital such as City.
That's certainly true. But I thought that your private practice was, well, that it was the thing that you were interested in building up.
Oh, yes, my practice is very large, of course. But it doesn't afford me much opportunity for, professional growth, shall I say. You know, what I was wondering, Brent, would there be a possibility that my services might be useful in this new setup of yours?
I think not, Dr. Fraser.
Well, you said a few minutes ago your staff wasn't complete as yet, you know.
That's true, it isn't. But I'm sure that I can handle such surgical cases as we have for the time being.
But if I could work with you as the thing grew...
Fraser, I've tried working with you. A number of times in the past.
Oh. Well, we're older now, Brent. Not so hot-headed.
I'm not so much older that I've forgotten certain incidents.
No, I'm sorry you feel that way about it, Brent. You see, I was hoping that I could offer you, I have some money that I could put into some such project.
We don't need your money. We never will. Thank you, just the same.
No, that's too bad. I'd hoped we might, work something out between us, Brent.
That's utterly impossible, Fraser, and you know it. Well, I guess I better be going. I'll appreciate it if you'll bring up my membership before the staff meeting.
Oh, yes, I'll do that. By the way, Brent, I've asked to have your son put on my service when he enters the hospital.
On your service?
Yes. He'll be starting next week, won't he? Graduating in a couple of days?
Yes.
Yes, of course. Well, I'm looking forward to having him around. He's a good chap. The makings of an excellent surgeon. You can be very proud of him, Brent.
I always have been proud of him.
Well, goodbye, Brent.
Goodbye.
The secretary in the outer office looked up at Dr. Brent as he went past her. But she could read nothing in the almost grim impassiveness of his face. Be sure to listen to our next episode on the Road of Life. This is Gene Baker saying good day for the makers of Does, and reminding you to do as the Doesums do. Let Does, the new kind of soap, do everything in your wash. quickly at your dishpan by saving soap. Soap contains war materials. Never waste it. In wartime, never waste anything.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Now, get ready to smile again with radio's home folks, Vic and Sade, written by Paul Reimer. Vic and Sade is brought to you by Procter & Gamble's Crisco, the pure all-vegetable shortening. It's digestible. Well, sir, it's 15 minutes past 10 o'clock in the morning as we approach the small house halfway up in the next block now. And here on the back porch we find Mrs. Victor Gook. Mrs. Gook stepped outside a moment or so ago to shake her mop, and discovering the atmosphere to be bright and fresh and deliciously warm, she decided to take a brief rest from her household duties and enjoy the radiant sunshine. And now she perceives a familiar figure in the alley by the garbage box. Listen.
Hello there.
Good morning, Sade.
Mr. Donahoe asleep, Uncle Fletcher.
Glorious day.
Yes.
Got into Ray Fungal there on Kelsey Street just now. Ray tells me he's been in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma the last 2 weeks. Wasn't it in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where you and Vic bought that easy chair with the adjustable back? What's the matter?
Mr. Donahoe's asleep next door.
Is that a fact?
He got in off in the Kansas City freight drag at 6 o'clock this morning, and he's dog-tired. And at 4 o'clock this afternoon, he's taken a light engine to Murrayville on the jack line and dead-heading back at midnight tonight. Golly, it's the punishment a railroad engineer has to take.
It works out that way sometimes.
Hey, sit down, Uncle Fletcher.
I believe it will.
Isn't it a perfectly wonderful day?
Yes, indeed.
I come out on the porch to shake my mop, and when I got a whiff of the air and felt the breeze, I decided to play hooky and soak myself up some sunshine.
That's right. That's right.
It's warm, and yet it's cool. That sounds crazy, don't it?
Yes, yes, it does.
It's warm, and yet it's cool.
Very crazy, very crazy.
Delicious weather for Mr. Donahoe to get some sleep in. Dandy, fresh breeze blowing and all. I see he's got his window wide open. Pretty white curtain fluttering and dancing.
Well.
Oh, I bet he's just more than snoozing away.
Well.
Oh, yes, Uncle Fletcher. Quit acting so bored. From the expression on your face, a person would think you were in pain listening to your niece rattle on.
Not at all, Sadie, honey, not at all.
You rattle on a while.
Fine.
How's Miss Keller?
She don't say a great deal. Miss Keller don't.
Eats 3 hearty meals every day and leaves it go at that, I bet.
Eats 3 hearty meals every day and leaves it go at that, yes. No, Miss Keller pretty much keeps her trap shut. I don't comment.
Oh, there go some boys along the alley. I hope they don't holler and kick up a lot of noise.
How's this?
Those boys in the alley there. I hope they go on past without screeching and hollering.
Going to talk about Mr. Donahoe some more, are they saying?
You getting sick and tired of the subject of Mr. Donahoe? Hey, we're going to wake up Mr. Donahoe ourselves if we don't watch out.
Yes.
Maybe we better lower our voices.
Why?
He looked just ready to collapse when he got home this morning. I just happened to be glancing out the window and saw him. Looked just ready to collapse.
Who's this?
Mr. Donohue.
Oh.
My. You rattle on about something.
Right. Nice mop you got there, Sadie.
Well, thank you.
New one, is it?
Well, fairly new.
The handle's still pretty white. The metal clamp's not started to rust yet.
It's a fairly new mop.
Congratulations on it.
Oh, goodness.
Beg pardon?
A floor mop is a funny thing to get compliments on.
Not at all. I believe like Ernie Sweeler there in Belvedere used to say.
What was that?
If a person's got something nice, it don't hurt to mention it.
Uh-huh.
Person appreciates hearing something nice mentioned.
Well, imagine.
Say, for example, you're good looking.
All right.
I tell you, you're good looking.
Uh-huh.
You like to hear that?
Oh, sure.
Same identical thing if you got a nice dog, or a handsome diamond ring, or a new suit, or a good mop. You like to hear people mention?
Yes, I guess I do.
Ernie Sweeler lived by that rule, and he was one of the best-liked fellows in Belvedere.
Mm-hmm.
Dead now, Ernie is. Passed away under very sad circumstances. Still fairly young, too. Not much past 65. I've heard of sad things, Sadie, and I've seen sad things, but I believe this is the saddest thing I ever run up against in all the sad...
Oh, well, goodness. If it's sad, let's not even talk about it. It's too pretty a day. Let's change the subject.
Fine. Vic at the office, are they?
Oh, sure.
Russell at school?
Yes, this is his last week.
Works out that way sometimes. Works out that way sometimes.
It sure does.
I got something in my tooth.
Mm-hmm. The guilty feeling a person gets when they desert their housework and play hooky and sit in the sunshine is all the more delicious when they realize they got 8 or 9 jobs piled up.
I got work to do myself, Sadie, honey.
Oh, have you?
I'm not free to skulk in the sunshine all day.
I hope I never hinted you were.
This is one mighty busy day for me.
Uh-huh. Well, if what I said sounded like I was making out, you didn't have anything to do, but...
I only stopped past to pass the time of day. In just a few minutes, I've got to hurry down to the 1000 block on West Washington Street.
Uh-huh. Well,
No, I'm not free to skulk in the sunshine all day.
Uncle Fletcher, I've offended you. Gosh, I never had any idea in the world.
I got just as much to occupy my time as anybody else has.
Uncle Fletcher, I'm afraid we're talking too loud. Mr. Donahue.
What?
I'm afraid we're talking too loud. We'll wake up Mr. Donahue.
Fine.
No, not fine.
I've got to go down to the 1000 block on West Washington Street.
Oh?
I have an appointment with Bert Choffer there in Choffer's shoe repair shop.
Having your shoes repaired, are you?
I'm having the laces changed.
Oh, my.
What's funny?
Oh, it's nothing. I'm just silly this morning, I guess.
Uh-huh.
You're going clear way out to the 1000 block on West Washington just to have your shoelaces changed?
Bert Choffer's an expert at it.
An expert at changing shoelaces?
Yes.
Well, I should think you could change your own shoelaces at home.
What are you laughing at?
Am I laughing?
Eyes dancing around your head like you was going to bust out any minute.
No, but I guess it does strike me strange a person go to all about
I
it.
wear elkskin shoelaces, Sadie. It's a chore to put elkskin shoelaces in shoes. It takes strength to do it. And it takes a knack. And years of practice. No, thunder. If it was just ordinary shoelaces, naturally I wouldn't bother going clear out to Bert Choffer's place. But I'm talking about elkskin shoelaces. Look at my shoelaces once.
Huh?
Yeah, I can see why you laughed. No, this is elkskin shoelaces I'm talking about.
Well, certainly look substantial.
They are substantial. They are substantial.
Mean and obstinate, I bet, to work with.
Mean and obstinate is right. Sadie, honey, I'll go so far as to say this. I'll go so far as to say that I'd be willing to wager $5 silver you couldn't change these elkskin shoelaces into another pair of shoes if you were allowed 8 hours in which to negotiate the job.
Well, I imagine you'd win the wager.
Why, you'd give up in terror and desperation and scalding tears after 20 minutes. It's no laughing matter. Hold up your foot once.
No.
Hold it up. Hold it up. Yes. Just plain ordinary cotton. Just plain ordinary cotton. Plain, common, ordinary, 5 cents a pair of cotton.
Oh, well, Ish, quit running down a person's shoestrings.
Take your foot back, Sadie, honey. I'm through.
Well, thanks for nothing, I'm sure.
No, I can see why you laugh when I said I had an appointment with Bert Choffer, Choffer Shoe Repair Shop there on West Washington Street to have the laces in my shoes changed.
Yeah.
You didn't realize I had reference to elkskin shoelaces.
No.
Why, murder, it takes Bert 2 solid hours.
Lance, I wouldn't have thought...
Hold up your foot again.
Huh?
Hold up your foot. Hold up your foot.
Oh, Ish.
Hold it up. Hold it up.
Oh, you quit treating me like a...
Just like I thought.
What's the matter now?
Just like I thought. You lace your shoes the ordinary crisscross way.
Well, sure I do.
I'll call your attention to the way my shoes are laced.
Let's see.
This is the Cincinnati overhand triple lock.
What is?
The manner in which my shoes are laced.
Oh, for goodness sake.
The Cincinnati overhand triple lock.
Oh.
See how involved it is?
Mm-hmm.
Follow with your eye, please, the different directions this end of my shoestring travels. She comes up through this eyelet here. She crosses over, under, and around.
Oh, it's like one big snarl.
It's the Cincinnati overhand triple lock.
I'll say.
Invented and developed by Morgan Perrin of Downers Grove, Illinois. Morgan Perrin of Downers Grove, Illinois, by the way, was an uncle of Homer Heck's there in Norman, Oklahoma. You bring Homer Heck of Norman, Oklahoma to mind, are they, Sadie?
He never even owned the socks he wore on his feet.
Homer Heck of Norman, Oklahoma, never even owned the socks he wore on his feet. Morgan Perrin attempted to invent another method of lacing the shoes, a method known as the Little Daisy counterclockwise squeal. But it was so involved and complicated, his mind broke under the strain, and he'd never done anything the last 30 years of his life but sit out in the yard in a hammock and chuckle.
Oh, gracious.
So you see, Sadie, honey, Bert Choffer has really got a job on his hands. Not only is he going to change a pair of elkskin shoelaces, but he's going to manipulate those elkskin shoelaces according to the formula laid down by Morgan Perrin of Downers Grove, Illinois, known as the Cincinnati overhand triple lock. And, of course, it'll be quite a strain on me also.
Why?
I'm going to stand and watch Bert while he does it.
Oh.
The man goes through agony. When you used the words mean and obstinate a while ago, Sadie, you didn't use words 1/3 stout enough. A man threading elkskin shoelaces in a pair of shoes and following the Cincinnati overhand triple lock formula of lacing will perspire and sob and cry and shudder and whimper and pull handfuls of hair off on his head and bite his lip and sometimes fall over in a dead faint.
My stars.
Certainly no joke, I can tell you.
Oh.
Well, I better be on my way.
Hey, me, too.
I better be on my way to the 1000 block on West Washington Street.
I better be on my way upstairs and start making beds.
Glorious day.
Lands, yes. I bet Mr. Donahue's just mooring, snoozing away. Such a delicious breeze. See his pretty white curtain how it flutters and dances.
Yes, fine. Well, Sadie, honey, I'll leave you now. I've got quite a heavy day in front of me.
Yes, you're going to have your shoestrings changed.
That's right.
Well, I hope everything goes off smooth.
I hope so, too. I hope so, too.
Oh.
Goodbye, Sadie, honey.
Goodbye, Uncle Fletcher.
Which concludes another brief interlude at the small house halfway up in the next block. And don't forget to listen to Vic and Sade the next time. This is Ed Roberts saying good day for Crisco. It's digestible.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
It's 11:30 a.m. Eastern Wartime. This is WEAF, New York.
It's time for Brave Tomorrow, a story of love and courage. Written for you by Ruth Adams Knight.
And brought to you by the makers of Ivory Flakes.
Life requires courage. Out of the challenge of today, we build our brave tomorrow. On the road which leads to the famous Bar H Ranch, there has been a tragic accident. But unaware of that, Jim Holland is awaiting the arrival of his three guests. Courtney Blaine, who is coming to write an article about his job. Marty Lambert, who is coming to escape from the emotional problems which have been torturing her 17-year-old soul. And Louise Lambert, who has seen in this visit a resumption of her acquaintance with Jim Holland and her first relief from boredom since the quarrel with her husband Hal, which resulted in her staying on for a time in Dustville. Leaning on the corral fence, Jim is talking to Steve, his foreman.
I hope you won't mind all these visiting females too much, Steve. I promise to keep them out of your hair.
Well, if we've got to have them, I'll put up a brave front. Sure don't see any sense in it, though, boss.
You know there are people in this world who've never been on a Texas ranch, Steve?
I don't believe it. What are they living for?
Waiting for the chance, I guess. Well, they're all pretty sensible women, Steve. They won't give you any trouble.
Scream at snakes?
Well, maybe. But not at spiders.
Right.
English saddle.
Gee, Horsepath. You wouldn't have an English saddle on the place.
Oh, they're going to learn cowboy fashion. One of the ladies is very young and pretty, Steve.
Female age and looks don't interest me one way or the other. I'll be polite to them if you say so.
I most certainly do say so.
What's the matter with the other two?
Not a thing. They're both charming. Miss Blaine may ask you a lot of questions about the ranch.
One of those inquiring dames, is she?
Well, she's writing an article.
About the ranch?
About transporting food for the government.
Oh, your job. Hope she appreciates how good you are.
Forget to mention it to her, will you, Steve? Just as a favor.
How could she write an article if she don't know anything?
Oh, what I mean is, soft peddle the personal stuff. She can write all she wants to about the number of pounds of beef it takes to feed an army, but I don't want anything dropped about the white felt hats I wear or the pipes I smoke.
Or the dames that think you're a motion picture cowboy.
You let any of that foolishness drop.
Okay, boss. I'm mum as an oyster.
They might want to go out on a pack trip.
You got it bad, haven't you?
What do you mean?
Taking time out to convoy a bunch of women on a pack trip. I never thought I'd see the day.
I told you, Steve, I'm tired. Too tired to do my job. Getting out on the ranch is the only thing that helps when I find I'm groggy, adding up figures.
And for Pete's sake, go be yourself. Nobody ever got any rest with a woman along, boss. Nobody.
Well, I'll see. I suppose if this place ever had a real mistress, Steve, you'd just start off down the road and never come back.
This place with a real mistress? Yes. You wouldn't be thinking of that, would you?
I might, someday. I've lived out here alone a long time.
Alone?
Yes.
You got me, ain't you? You got the best bunch of cowhands in the Southwest. You got Emmy to keep house for you. What more could you want?
I don't know. I never thought a man wanted anything more, but lately, Steve, I've considered the matter of getting married.
Yeah. Boss, you just ain't.
Well, nothing definite, you understand. I wouldn't even dare think about it until I have your blessing.
Well, you sure ain't got it, nor any prospects.
Do you mean you wouldn't like it?
Wouldn't like it? Now, listen. I've been foreman here for you ever since you was a buck and colt, Mr. Holland. I run this place for you like I run it for your father before you. He's old enough to take over yourself. I've gone right on doing it, too. Putting up with all your newfangled notions, letting you bring in all sorts of fancy stock no regular ranchman ever heard of.
But they've done all right, haven't they?
Yeah, done all right, but it ain't legitimate. It ain't according to rules. But I've stood for it. Sometimes I think the place looks more like a museum than a ranch. I'm taking care of everything for you since you went galloping off to the wars, too.
I know you have. I owe you more than I can ever say, Steve.
You owe me nothing. Only don't go bringing any females onto the place to stay or I'm through.
Well, of course, if you feel that strongly about it.
You got ideas about one of these coming down here today?
Oh, this is business, Steve. And an attempt to give a lady a little vacation out of Dustville.
She's staying there. She needs one, all right.
So, you be nice to them all, Steve, will you?
You won't double-cross me? Get to imagine you're sweet on any one of them.
I'm much too old and fond of my own ways for that, Steve.
They say those are just the ones. It seemed to me if you was going to get the marrying craze, you'd have had the lot earlier.
Like measles? Maybe I would have. I've just always seemed too busy for romance. Too much work to be done.
Best break you ever had. I suppose you want me to round up a flock of rocking horses.
Yeah, three nice, gentle animals, please. I'll leave it to you.
Well, I'll go out after them, if you say so. But I'd never thought you'd come to this, boss. If you ask me, it'd been a lot better if you hadn't.
Jim Holland comes slowly up from the corral toward his ranch house, set in a clump of scrubby trees and looking cool and inviting. The path near the house is bordered with cactus. The scarlet blossoms are flame against the grayness of the landscape and the vivid blue of the sky. Jim looks at the scene and draws a deep breath, a breath of utter happiness at the sudden sight of the beauty of this land he loves so sometimes gives him. Steve is right, he thinks. This is his home, his life, his family. He needs nothing more. Not even the companionship of a delicate, feminine woman like Louise Lambert. Not even the gracious loveliness of Courtney Blaine. And yet Jim Holland has to admit that the prospect of their coming has shaken him out of his usual well-disciplined routine. He enters the house and goes out into the great ranch kitchen where Emmy, his cook, presides in undisputed authority. At the moment, Emmy stands at the stove stirring the bubbling contents of a huge kettle. As Jim Holland enters, she looks up and says,
"What time you expect this company of yours, Mr. Holland?"
I don't know exactly. He'll have to drive slowly, of course.
"Yes. Well, I got the guest rooms all fixed up ready for 'em.
Good.
Gave 'em the ones on the west side, off the balcony, like you said.
Oh, that's fine, Emmy, fine. I want you to take good care of them.
I'll take care of 'em all right. It'll do me good to cook for quality ladies a while. After all the fine eating I waste on these cowboys.
I always appreciate your cooking, Emmy. Never wasted on me.
Oh, half the time you don't know what you're putting in your mouth. Well, I got little old pies out there cooling now. I'm planning to give 'em a big roast.
Oh, that's fine, Emmy. Thank you very much. Well, I'll let you know as soon as they arrive.
Mr. Holland.
Yeah?
Is there...
Yes, Emmy?
Is there one of these ladies that's extra special?
Why, no, Emmy. There's a lady and a daughter, and the third one is a writer getting material for a story.
Oh.
Why?
Nothing. I was just hopeful.
Hopeful? About what?
Mr. Holland, every time I looks at you, I think, now, why in creation ain't that man gone and got married a long time ago like he oughta?
Well, you and Steve ought to come to some sort of agreement. He's violently opposed to any such idea.
Much as he knows. You ought to have a home, Mr. Holland.
What do you call this?
But this is just the makings. No place is a real home till it's got a woman what loves you in it.
Well, I'm afraid this one will have to wait quite a while, Emmy. We've got a war to win first, you know.
Well, after the war, Mr. Holland, you're going to put your mind to getting married then.
After the war?
Yes.
I don't know. It's hard for any of us to know what we'll do, Emmy. After the war.
There's that telephone again. Been ringing like that all morning.
I'll get it, Emmy. I'm going in. Give us a nice dinner now.
Oh, you trust Emmy.
Yes, okay. Don't get excited. Hello.
Boy, Ranch.
Yeah?
Mr. Jim Holland?
This is Jim Holland.
Mr. Holland, you expecting some guests today? 3 ladies driving out from Dustville?
That's right. What about who is this?
This is State Troop North. I'm sorry to have to inform you that there's been an accident.
What kind of an accident?
Well, their car went off the road, tipped over at the bridge turnoff.
Good heavens. Are they seriously hurt?
We don't know yet. The girl's conscious. She gave us your name. We're trying to get an ambulance, but there's none available at the moment. Mr. Holland.
Yes?
The wreck is much nearer to your ranch and to Dustville.
Yes?
Do you have any sort of wagon or truck you could bring? These women have got to be moved.
Of course. I'll be there as fast as I can get there. Emmy.
Yes, Mr. Holland, what's wrong with you?
Call Dustville. Say there's been an accident. Get Dr. Carter down here immediately. Tell him it's emergency.
Accident? Where's any accident?
I'm bringing the people here. Steve and I'll take the truck. Emmy, get me a mattress and blankets and something for bandages. Oh, and the first aid kit. And hurry up about it. Someone may be dying. Steve!
Yes, Emmy. Take the company dinner off the stove and get the bandages ready, and hurry. For a car lies overturned in the bottom of a Texas ditch, and someone may be dying. Louise Lambert or Courtney Blaine? Life requires courage. Out of the challenge of today, we build our brave tomorrow.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
WEAF, New York.
Once again, we present David Harum, one of the most beloved stories of American fiction. For David Harum is America. It's the story of every one of us, of our search for love, for happiness, and the good way of life. Housewives who would like to save both time and money in cleaning will profit from this letter from a woman who is not...
The National Broadcasting Company interrupts all its programs to bring you a special broadcast. We take you now to London.
This is the Advanced Allied Command Post of the Invasion Forces. Part of the amphibious forces which struck at France yesterday were manned by personnel of the United States Coast Guard. Covering them for the combined radio and press global pool was Mr. Tom Trainer, war correspondent of the Los Angeles Times. Mr. Trainer has just arrived at the command post from France after landing on the beachhead with the American Army units that the Coast Guard delivered into battle. He is here in the studio to give you his eyewitness report of the invasion. Mr. Trainer.
I've just returned from France after hitchhiking on 8 ships, mostly Coast Guard. Coast Guard craft seem to be all over the channel, snaking survivors out of the water, rushing wounded to first aid, and landing infantry and vehicles on the beach. I hit the beach myself early during D-Day when the Coast Guard cutter on which I was stationed went close ashore to pull aboard some men who had capsized in a duck. They came aboard shivering and shaking with cold, and as soon as they got below, proceeded to get seasick all over the place. I ceased interviewing them at this point and asked my skipper, Lieutenant Raymond Rosenblum of Baltimore, if he would hail a passing landing craft inward bound to the beach and put me aboard. The transfer was made, and my new skipper, Lieutenant Edward Raymond of Pittsburgh, said, I don't think we can get in. It's all these obstacles that are messing the thing up before we even get to the beach. I couldn't see any obstacles. That's the trouble, he said. Neither can we. The tide is running high and they're covered. Those are heavy posts driven into the sand with booby traps attached. At low tide, we can avoid them. At high tide, you see, he pointed to various landing craft up and down the beach, which have been stove in and swung idly back and forth with the surf. They got us, he said. We prowled up the coast a mile looking for an opening, and then heard a loud hail behind us. A sleek-looking patrol craft slid by, and the skipper shouted, Hold off. Don't put your craft ashore until you get further orders. Now what, I asked Raymond. We'll see if we can get you on something smaller, he said. He got out his loudhailer and called a landing craft personnel, which was heading into the beach. Motor machinist mate John Kramer of Albany, New York, and seaman first class Jack Whitney of Columbus, Ohio, took me aboard. Okay, said Kramer to Whitney, let's go and keep an eye out for the traps. We came sliding and slewing in on some light breakers and grounded. I stepped ashore on France, walking up a beach where men were moving casually about, carrying equipment inshore. Up the coast a few hundred yards, German shells were pounding in regularly, but in our area it was peacefully busy. How did you make out? I asked one of the men. It was reasonably soft, he said. The Germans had some machine gun posts and some high-velocity guns on the palisades and made it a little hot at first. They waited until a landing craft dropped their ramps, then opened up on them while the men were still inside. In a few cases, we took heavy casualties. Then the Navy went to work on the German guns, and it wasn't long before they were quiet. The general lack of fortifications at this point was astonishing. The barbed wire consisted of 4 single strands, such as we use at home to fence in cattle. A man could get through by pushing down on one wire and lifting up on another, providing they weren't booby trapped. The engineers and beach battalions, however, had blown gaps in the wire through which we could move vehicles. A few dead lay about, and some wounded were here and there on stretchers awaiting transfer to ships at sea. All up and down the broad beach, as far as I could see, men, jeeps, bulldozers, and other equipment were moving about like ants. A few columns of black, greasy smoke marked equipment which had been hit by shell fire and set afire. The German shelling continued steadily at various points up and down the beach, but so far not reached the area in which I was walking. would work over an area, then move on to another. It was accurate, landing for the most part close to the water's edge, and I saw one small landing craft catch fire after taking a hit. Men came spilling out of it into water waist deep. From time to time, there were huge concussions as the engineers set off demolitions. The ground would shake, and the troops would throw themselves violently on the ground. I climbed a rock embankment and came to a piece of flat land where hundreds of men were digging foot trenches. When they got down about 1.5 feet, they struck water. Some of them were lying in the water, and I asked if there was much shelling. There is when there is, one man said. Right now there isn't, but when it comes, it sure comes. I asked him what German fortifications he could point out. He showed me some tunnels at the top of the palisade. The palisade rises above the beach along this stretch of coast. There were five or six positions I could make out, nothing particularly formidable. I walked over to an aerial which seemed to mark a command post. A colonel and a major were sitting beside a swift trench half filled with water, and I said to the colonel, "Sir, I'm a war correspondent." He looked up from a map fiercely, and the major said, "I think you'd better stop back later. You might try going up that path there where you see those men. If you can make it, watch out for mines. It's heavily mined." A long column of men was winding up the palisade on a narrow path. They weren't moving. At the skyline, they seemed to be knotted up. To reach the palisade, I joined a column who were wading across a slough. The water came nearly to their armpits, and they had to hold their rifles and equipments over their heads. The water was rather warm, but the bottom was a slimy mess. When a man got to the far side of the slough, he would always stop in a maddening way, holding the rest of us up. We shouted angrily, but when we got there, each one of us stopped too. The reeds on the far bank were loaded with mines. One man lay at the top of the bank dead. The mines had been marked with bits of paper, and soldiers at the top advised just how to climb so as not to venture into dangerous ground. There were more dead men along the narrow path which led up the palisade. The column had stopped moving, and I began to step past men following a captain. Suddenly a voice said, "Watch yourself, fella, that's a mine." A soldier sprawled on the bank was speaking. He had one foot half blown off. He'd stepped on a mine a short time earlier. Now, while he waited for litter bearers, he was warning other soldiers about other mines in that vicinity. I can stand the dead, but the wounded horrify me, and I only looked at him to thank him. He looked very tired, but perfectly collected. "What you need is the medics," I said. "I'll try and get them for you when I go back down." "Yeah," he said, "but how are they going to get up here?" He was right. The pathway was so clogged with men and so heavily mined that it was impassable. The engineers would have to get up there first. The column didn't move forward. The captain I was following stopped, and so did I. I asked him his name, and he said he was Louis Hilly of Cincinnati. "It looks like they shell around here a bit," I said, pointing to some shallow craters. "No," said Hilly, "those are all mines. That's why we're stuck on this path." We tried to edge a few feet further forward and came to a soldier lying in the path, curled around a mine. He said his name was Private Morton Soratello of the Bronx, and I asked him if it didn't make him nervous to be curled around a mine like that. "No," he said, "I just keep clear of it and pass the word on to those behind." Just ahead of him, Second Lieutenant Bernard Flynn of Springfield, Massachusetts, and Sergeant Arthur Brown of Brookfield, Maryland, were sitting in the immediate vicinity of mines, which they were calling to attention of all who passed. "It's all right, except when a shell comes in," Flynn said. "Then you're apt to forget and fall on the thing." While we were stopped there, a squib-like report sounded behind us. I thought it was a mortar going off, but Captain Hilly said it was a mine. He'd heard enough of them this day. At the top of the palisade, the knot of men had gotten to its feet, and it looked like the line might move. One man darted over the skyline, and almost immediately afterwards, we heard the speedy burst of a German machine gun. Then a few stray rifle shots. The bullets cracked overhead, and everyone instinctively ducked lower. These were some troops who had never seen combat before, and the bullets must have seemed close to them, although we were 100 feet below the skyline. The line remained stationary, and I looked down on the beach and the sea. Landing craft of all descriptions were sliding in through the low surf, disgorging men who moved through the water with amazing alacrity. As soon as they got ashore and saw the men moving about calmly, they seemed to steady down and began to walk quietly themselves. I waited a spell longer, and the line didn't move, so I began to make my way down the path again. It was slow work. The soldiers were so alarmed that I would step on a mine right next to them that one man told me to walk on his back rather than step off the path. I promised I would try and get the engineers up to disarm the mines. While I was going down the slope, the Germans began shelling our area. It was hard not to throw myself on the ground willy-nilly, but the thought of those mines kept me from it. The shells were still landing at some distance on the flat. I took a last look at the greatest armada in history before going on the flat. It was too immense to describe. There were so many transports on the horizon that in the faint haze they looked like a shoreline. Destroyers were almost on the beach, occasionally jolting out a salvo that was like a punch on the chin. Farther out, but still incredibly close to the beach, sat our huge battle wagons and cruisers. Overhead, formations of fighters swept swiftly through the air with nothing to do. During this entire day, I never saw a German plane nor spoke to a man who had seen one. I reached a small command post on the flat where a dispatch had just been handed two captains. It said that our troops were a mile inland, but we could still hear small arms fire. They were apparently being harassed by snipers, but so far it meant nothing heavy in the way of emplacements or an armored force. Just as I reached the beach, the German artillery came down in earnest. I dived into a split trench, but a man was in ahead of me, so I ducked under a bulldozer where I felt very safe. The only trouble was that I didn't want to get out from under the bulldozer after the shelling had stopped. The stuff was coming in close enough to send pebbles flying in, and I felt pretty badly shaken for a period. The first landing craft I boarded hung upon a sandbar. We had to unload and carry 5 stretcher cases through deep water to a second craft. Out in that great field of ships, it was like looking for a needle in a haystack to find my Coast Guard cutter. I never could locate it, but finally boarded another Coast Guard craft after transferring 3 times. Fortunately, it was the lead ship for the Coast Guard Rescue Flotilla, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Alexander Stewart of Mamaroneck, Long Island. We set off for England a few hours later, but a breakdown held us up, and we were 16 hours making the crossing.
You have just heard an eyewitness report of the Coast Guard and American Army effort in the invasion beachhead by Mr. Tom Trainer, broadcasting.
You've been listening to Tom Trainer of the Los Angeles Times, acting as special reporter for the National Broadcasting Company with the U.S. Coast Guard. Now back to NBC in New York.
And here we are back in New York after hearing that exclusive NBC story by Tom Trainer of the Los Angeles Times. We now bring you a brief interlude of music.